What is going on, you guys? It is Dollar Cost Crypto here with Jerome Powell increases the interest rates. Dramatic pause.
Son of a bitch.
Once again, to the moon. I am joined by the lovely oh my God. No,
I'm joined by me, myself, and I.
Me, myself, the most beautiful person on the planet. I'm joined by Charlie from Cultivate Crypto. What's up, dude?
Hey, it's going good. I don't know which camera I'm looking at, but one of them here.
One of them, yeah.
So, no, things are going good. Yeah, ready to see Bitcoin defy gravity here for a bit in 2023.
And it's such a weird sort of thing, too, as well, because it's like we're in this weird space where, like, everything should be dumping because of what the Fed's doing, but like the market is acting in completely irrational sort of way. Like,
well, not completely irrational, I think, but compared to the emotional trap that basically the market has set for most people, like the CNBCs and the like. Right, they're just trying. They put so much. It's the opposite of what they do in a bull market, right? They put so much hopium in you that you think is going to go on forever. They're putting so much fear into you that you think is going to go on forever. So it's the two emotions in crypto that are the most important, which is fear and greed. Right. So just whichever one they stoke the most of, once they start really, like once the majority of people, like you start talking to people, be like, yeah, here's a bullish case of what I think is going to happen and stuff. But then like they reject it. They won't even accept it because like that's how much they're emotionally invested into that narrative, right? And so yeah, that's kind of a good sign of a low being in when a lot of people, when you say the lows are in and people flip out on you because
impossible.
It's not only impossible, but then also yeah, they're just, it's like, it's the same. It's just going to continue forever, right? It's all going to zero.
Right. Crypto Jedi said the only words in crypto are mad gains.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's
right.
Correct. That's the right crypto mindset right there.
Right. Shing. Brought to you by Cultivate Crypto and Dollar Cost Crypto, LLC.
Yes, sir.
But no. But yeah. So I mean, but if you actually look at what the Fed's sort of doing, we're like, obviously, like, under their own words, they're kind of saying that like the economy is actually pretty strong right now, and we're trying to slow it down.
Right.
But what they're truly trying to do is like, well, we know what crash is going to happen at some point, or we need to sort of what they're trying to do is slightly pop the balloon without popping the balloon. They're trying to like make a little hole in it, let air out, and they're trying to have like a soft landing. is what they're trying to do. And so far, they are sort of accomplishing it in a way, so credit to them. But basically what the Fed is trying to do, there's two things they're trying to do. They're trying to raise rates high enough to the point where it lowers inflation down. But realistically, there's a second thing to that first point, is that they're trying to lower the rates low enough, or they're trying to raise the rates high enough that when calamity will happen, they can lower them back down. So they don't go straight to money printing, because we're having an inflation problem, and that's what really scares them.
Yep.
And so I've been doing these little streams, reacting to like the last Fed meetings or the last Fed talks and stuff for the last two rate hike increases. I think we got 50 and 25.
Yep.
And on the last 25 meeting, they basically said we're going to increase rates, not indefinitely, but basically past this next one in March. So it's looking like May 2 to 3, somewhere in there, May 3rd. We're going to get another rate hike increase, and off of like what we hear today, as well as I think at the beginning of the month, we should have the next Fed minutes out, and we should know by then if they're going to continue raising rates into like deep into summer.
Right.
And historically, when the Fed decides like, hey, we're no longer going to increase rates, whether up or down, there's always kind of a crash in the market. So if they've been raising rates and stop, boom, it's sort of like you flip the the polars across the world, and then it just destroys the world. It causes a crash, but it's happened every single time. So when they finally decides to pause, it's going to be a decent crash. I mean, it's kind of been the narrative I've been thinking for quite a while. Why we would get a nice decent crash somewhere in the year,
Yep.
And then after that, it's kind of like off to the races from there, outside of just like a very bad legislation or something, which we pretty much doubt.
Yeah, it seems like that's probably not happening unless it happens by June.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy too. I mean, Adam Rose, Australia just had another 2. The crying face. And actually the first one that said that they were actually going to pause rates was actually, if I remember correctly, it was the Bank of Canada, actually. Now, Canada might have to do that just because the higher the U.S. rate is compared to everyone else. I mean, they're still playing this whole sort of not trade war, but there's always a bit of a trade war. So you want your currency a little weaker than the dollar, so so people will then want to buy your goods and services because it's a good deal,
right?
Basically. And Canada's in such a position right now that, I mean, I think I saw it, not the other day, but I saw it at its all-time low. It was like 68 cents per dollar.
Even though they're the only fiat currency that's actually backed by something?
Maple syrup?
Yeah. Like, come on, man. Like, people love that shit. It's only 71 cents.
The juicy maple syrup. So, so we're going to pull up the video and react to the Fed chairman getting interviewed by the, if I remember correctly, the Economic Club of Washington, right? It is actually a really spicy interview. This guy asked a lot of great questions, David, and actually, I kind of laughed throughout this whole thing because he was like asking himself about his money, his income, all kinds of. I mean, it was kind of all over the place, but he asked very simplistic questions that some people wanted more answers to, as well as like how they actually get some of their data as well. So he asked quite a lot of different questions in there. So it's really, really, really interesting. And they're like as we'll see, like he also goes into like some of the inner politics that's going on in the background, and like how many more, like people think it's just like 7 dudes in a dark room with puppets and stuff, which is probably true, but it's actually quite a lot more members in the background. I mean, it might actually be like he'll say it in a minute, but it's quite a lot of people and assistants as well. And the assistants are good enough to be basically like the heads of like an economic, like the head of economics at a school, at a major university.
Right.
So it's a pretty like...
Yeah, you got to have the best of the best.
Right. Now, I will say one thing, though. Once he says about his income, reportedly his net worth is $50 million. And I just want you to hear how much he makes. So a year. So it's not Nancy Pelosi level. I don't think Nancy Pelosi got him on like a 4X.
He's like, I can't egregiously make too much money, but as long as I make a good amount of money, then I'll be happy, kind of thing. Yeah. Right.
And a lot of people in the comments section of this video were saying that like probably this dude's sitting on $1 billion on other accounts and stuff like that. So who knows?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
So let's get to it then. So full screen us. And away we go.
Everybody knows our special guest is the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, who has now completed 5 years as chairman as of 2 days ago, your 5th year, and now been on the Fed board for almost 12 years. So, Jay, thank you very much for being here. And why don't we start with an easy question? So, you made a speech last week commenting on the FOMC's decision to raise the Fed discount rate by a small amount, relatively speaking, 25 basis points. Some people would say that was small. But at the time, it wasn't.
It was small. Yeah, that was small. Like, it should, like, I think me and you were in the same club of, like, I think 75 was perfect. I mean, we were, like, one, I think, would have just nuked the market.
Yeah. I think even some people were surprised that they did do 75, right? Like, I think some people are like, whoa, that's pretty aggressive.
Yeah, it was really, really aggressive. Personally, I mean, once they dropped it to 50, I think I would have like, all right, let's just keep doing 50.
Yeah.
I mean, for me,
that's what I wanted.
Yeah. But
if we're going into a low, might as well go into it gloriously.
But there's always a silver lining somewhere if you look hard enough, right? Yeah. If he's doing 25s and if he's lagging at twice as long as he should be,
right?
Then we can continue on in this because the market, both the equities and crypto took a significant drop. Was it 77% on Bitcoin, down from all-time highs? Altcoins were down like 91 to like 85% on average for most altcoins. Some coins went to zero. Oops. Equities are down pretty significantly as well. Even real estate's on average is down like 14% on average. Maybe some places are down like 34%, like San Francisco. Mostly West Coast states, but even real estate's sort of softening, obviously with rates increasing, right?
Yeah.
So, the economy, like the capital class is taking quite a big hit. But that's what they want to do. They want to hurt the capital class in order for them to stop spending. So then that pretty much trickles down into people losing jobs. So it's like it's like I forgot who said this quote, but like a small business outside of it going out of outside of it, I'm butchering it, but like outside of them going out of business, when the economy gets bad, they just make less money. Right. Where someone would but the people who then make less money spend on less things. There's a trickle down effect where all these white collar jobs that are being lost at Google and Facebook and Amazon. So people laugh at it a little bit. And it's like, haha, those lefties, right?
Well, and it's just people who had some people look at it as like the easy train of money.
Right. It's easy, like, oh, look at these white collar guys who just sitting there. And there were some women and there were some guys like putting TikToks and like Instagram stories.
Oh, there's some really bad ones. Yeah. It's
pretty bad. It even made me a little like, like it was like these people of like living like the luxury, like I guess I woke up today after work. I'm doing all this chi chakra stuff. I just did my tarot cards. I guess I'll go to the gym now. Oh, it's 12:30 in the afternoon. Oh, I guess I'll go to the. I guess I'll
do a half hour work.
A half hour work. Oh my God, it's pizza day at the office. And it's seriously, it is that bad. Actually, there is like tons of videos like that. All these people who had those videos got fired. And it's really funny because there's like before afters. Well, you guys, I got they let me go.
Oh, that's good.
So those guys for sure buy, but there was a lot of other people that legitimately were working hard and just got. I mean, sometimes you were in the hiring process. Like some companies.
Oh yeah. It was. The most interesting one that I ever saw in Japan was when basically the iPhone came out because back in like 2000, let's say 2004 to 2007, somewhere in there, right? Most mobile phones in America were basically like the best phones were like Blackberries and like, you had like Nokia bricks, and shit like that. And like,
the Blackberry was king.
Yeah. It was king. Right. And then, but the Japanese at the time, they had actual flip phones that like could connect to satellite TV and you could watch like baseball games on them and shit. It was fucking dope, right? They're way better. But then as soon as the iPhone came out, then all these companies were like, okay, we're going to copy that, right? So you had Sony, you had NEC, you had Fujitsu, you had Panasonic, and Kyocera all come out with different phones. And so when I was recruiting, it was about 4 years after the 2008-9 crash. So it was around 2012, 13 when I started recruiting, and basically it was a consolidation of that industry. Sony was the only one that survived.
Really?
Yeah. Every other mobile phone business was just like, the iPhone won.
Wow. And
they just shut down every iPhone business. So it was easy for a recruiter because all you have to do is start calling Panasonic's, LCD divisions and shit like that. And, you just start going in there and getting different people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, it was really interesting to just kind of watch which companies actually protected people, which ones didn't. A company like NEC or Fujitsu would just be like, yeah, whatever. Like, all these people lost their jobs. Got good luck finding new ones, whereas Panasonic does the more traditional Japanese thing, which is like, we're going to find another position for you within the company. And like, I headhunted one or two people that were like pretty high up in their division. And as soon as I got one or two of them, once I tried to go to like the third or fourth one, I called them. They were like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I already found a new position. And like, they got restructured somewhere. So you could tell the company actually cared about them, right? Whereas a lot of Japanese companies say they care about you, but that one actually showed it, right? So
shout out to Panasonic.
Yeah, really. Panasonic's a good brand, but
my clippers are made from them.
So you kind of see like the which companies are ruthless and which ones aren't. So like, yeah, it's really interesting to kind of see. I think at the end of the day, if people are really in kind of like a bad situation, it's really kind of like a more local things where people get help. Like they get help from their company, they get help from their community. It's usually not getting help from like the federal level, right?
Right.
Most people won't care when they lose their job, to be honest.
Right. So all these people who lose these jobs, and this doesn't matter in whatever country, if it's well-paying jobs, these people have. They pay painters, babysitters. Like people think that like you lose 10,000 of these jobs, it also is affecting the income of a ton of other people. So the service industry takes a hit. So it is a big detriment. So when you see these layoffs,
especially if they don't get rehired or if they start losing enough income where they can't pay for some of their basic needs. And like for example, in America, right, if they can't pay for transportation, then they basically can't get to work unless they're doing a job they can do remotely and stuff like that. So. It can get bad for some people. Yeah.
Tokyo Drift, PlayStation, Nissan.
Nissan was interesting stories. I mean, there's sometimes you start, you get it. It's like the best part about being a recruiter is you'll be working most of the day and you'll have these people come in at night and just tell you stories about like these companies. And just sometimes they're like, okay, normal, average stories. But then sometimes you're just like, what? What happened in that company? The accounting firms of Nissan and I think it was Toyota at the time got into it, but like Nissan was the only one that got in trouble and like, whoa, yeah.
Well, damn,
they're all doing it, but some of them can pay off some people better,
Perfect. Full screeners?
Allegedly.
Speaking 25 basis points. Some people would say that was small. But at the time, it wasn't clear that the jobs report would be as strong as it turned out to be subsequently. Had you known that the jobs report was going to be as strong, would you have done 25 basis points or something different?
David, thank you for that question, and thank you for inviting me here today. It's great to be here. So we don't get
Instead of having this cushy little intro, he just goes straight for the jugular. It's like, fucker, if you knew this. And the reason they laughed at that is because like it's always been assumed like they get it early. They get it really early. So they knew and they still raised. But so he asked a juicy question is like, so what he's trying to get out of him is basically like, okay, the jobs report was really strong and stuff like that, or because it was so strong and stuff, you think maybe you should just chilled out, basically. Which for them, nobody wants the economy to crash, right? So everyone's kind of like they're not really mad at the Fed, but they're kind of like come on, dude, stop. The higher we had what's his name, Tyler on the stream one day, and we were talking about Fed talk and stuff, and he says like there just isn't enough unemployed people in America.
Yeah.
He wanted half of America unemployed. That's the fact.
It's kind of like the fog of war, but finance style. It's like everybody's just a number.
But in a way, they kind of do talk like that. Like sometimes, like they talk about the humanity sometimes, and then they kind of lean back into that. And
they can't. Like if they were to do that, you just at some point you have to, when you're pulling those levers, you gotta do the math. That's it.
Yeah, people get chopped up.
Yeah.
Strong. Would you have done 25 basis points or something different?
David, thank you for that question, and thank you for inviting me here today. It's great to be here. So we don't get to play it that way, unfortunately. We have to, but I'll take it this way. So the message we were sending at the FOMC meeting last Wednesday was really that the disinflationary process, the process of getting inflation down, has begun, and it's begun in the goods sector, which is about a quarter of our economy. but it has a long way to go. These are the very early stages of disinflation. So the services sector really, except for housing services, pardon me, is not really showing any disinflation yet. So our message really was this process is likely to take quite a bit of time. It's not going to be, we don't think, smooth. It's probably going to be bumpy. And so we think that we're going to need to do further rate increases, as we said, and we think that we'll need to hold policy at a restrictive level for a period of time. Then comes the labor market report for January. And it's very strong. It's certainly stronger than anyone I know expected. And so, but I would say, we didn't expect it to be this strong, but I would say it kind of shows you why we think that this will be a process that takes a significant period of time. The labor market's extraordinarily strong. And by the way, it's good. It's a good thing that inflation has started to come down without it. That has not happened at the cost of a strong labor market. So, and of course, since then, financial conditions have tightened significantly since then.
That's true, but that also could be that a lot of baby boomers are retiring. And then as soon as you're retired, they take you off of the actual consensus of that and stuff. So you're not a part of the numbers anymore.
Right. Also,
there's other numbers too. As like, if I remember right, if you have been trying to look for a job for longer than a year and a half, you're not counted anymore.
Damn.
Yeah, basically, like you're trying to get a job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because then you go into the homeless problem and stuff like that. It gets bad real quick.
Yeah. So it could be the demographic shift because it's like what's going on right now is like extras are filling up the spots of a lot of the boomers, but then there's not enough extras to fill it up. So you're starting to get some older millennials getting into those really positions of power.
Right.
So you're having sort of a level up going on right now, which is good. That's healthy. That's what's supposed to happen. But that might be what's skewing the numbers out, and also why we're having a bit of a thing where like these people, since they're upgrading up, there's a big demand for just the base level of worker and stuff. They can't find. There's actually a labor shortage right now.
And yeah, so. When there's a labor shortage, I mean, like, it's good for people who are able to get jobs, right? Because then they can just kind of command whatever salaries they want. So, I mean, for the people who are still around, it's great.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely good if you're in a competitive field, but if you're in a place where they're starting to automate,
when they're going to take away your fucking job eventually,
right.
They'll start, getting rid of you. Yeah, then they don't have to care anymore. That's true.
Right. So let's go back to it. Let's see.
Or since then, financial conditions have tightened significantly since then.
Motherfuckers.
So let me ask it another way. So, by the way, when the numbers coming out, the jobs numbers, 519,000.
I can tell this older dude right here on the left is just like Dave right here is just like a jokester a little bit. He's got the troll. He's got the little bit of the troll like thing. He's like penched over a little bit. Like, how do we get this guy?
He's like a literal troll, like the embodiment of what we view trolls on the internet as.
Oh my God.
Jobs. Does anybody call you up in the government and give you a little heads up this is going to happen, or they never do that?
Info.
So on some data, sometimes we get data just the night before, and it's only me, and but not on all pieces of data. It's a very small amount of data, and we get it just the night before. For example, if we were going to get a big piece of data in the middle of an FOMC meeting, as often happens on the day of an FOMC meeting, it will help me to know it the night before.
Okay, so the markets, after your speech last week, the markets assumed that, therefore, there would probably be another 25 basis point increase in your next FOMC meeting. Was that a bad assumption by the markets?
So, what we said at the meeting was that we believe that we anticipate, is what we said, that ongoing rate increases will be appropriate. And the reason is we're trying to achieve a stance of policy that is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to 2% over time. And we don't think we've achieved that yet. So we said...
With the help of the CPI numbers getting changed as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And, they're probably still not going to achieve it. Yeah. Which is funny because politically at some point, they might just be like, yeah, we gotta kind of chill down here, yeah. Because
it's kind of like how we were talking about earlier on the Cultivate Crypto show that was earlier.
Oh
today.
yeah, it was a pretty good show.
Yeah,
that's what I heard at least.
That's what I heard at least. It was we were talking about wow. can't even talk today. CBDCs.
Right.
Yeah, we were talking about CBDCs, and the last time you had done a show about that would have been like 101 episodes ago.
Yeah, 8 months ago.
Jesus, that's a lot of episodes in like 8 months, man.
Tell me about it. Like I didn't know, and like it's kind of like, you know what happened to me the first time I did YouTube consistently, because I originally did it for I think 3 days a week for like 9 months.
Yeah,
and then I stopped. It is kind of like running a marathon. You don't realize you're running it until you stop.
Huh.
And then like I took a break and I was like, holy shit, like, you know, like I really, like, it tired me out. But then I went from, and then I changed right after that, as I changed in the new year, I changed from 3 to 5 episodes a week, and I haven't stopped since.
Nice.
So I'm just like, you just keep the marathon going, baby, you know, don't stop.
Yeah, I'm not
Except for the crypto mindset course, of course.
Yeah,
but then that's a different type of marathon.
Right, that's ultra endurance.
Which is why we got Celsius tropical vibe here tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, it helps keep you going.
Yeah, I think right now I'm doing 3 except for this week, but and then also MOONGANG as well.
Yep.
As well. So I'm doing like 4 streams on average. Yeah. So let's continue on. Let's go.
And the reason is we're trying to achieve a stance of policy that is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to 2% over time. And we don't think we've achieved that yet. So we said that, and you know, now you see the labor market report, and I think, again, financial conditions are more well aligned with that than they were before.
So the assumption when you made your speech was that probably the Fed might even consider decreasing rates by the end of this year, and the markets no longer assume that. You think the markets are wrong?
Well, so let me say, these are all of these numbers that we're throwing around here are conditional on incoming data and what happens. So we never say this is what we think will happen. We make a tentative forecast and then we let the data come in. For example, if the data were to continue to come in stronger than we expect, and we were to conclude that we needed to raise rates more than is priced into the markets or than we wrote down at our last group of forecasts in December, then we would certainly do that. We would certainly raise rates more.
So what he's saying right now, this is why the whole jobs report is so kind of like why they continue. So they're like, okay, it's strong. We want to let this, like, the markets are rallying, because of course they say they don't pay attention to the equities markets, but they do. All fun. They can't say that, but they obviously do. And what's
just, you know, to help Nancy out.
Oh yeah, just help Nancy. Shout out to Nancy.
You know, she's just a nice old lady. She needs a couple extra bucks.
Hey, there you go. But so what's going on now is, like, so people are like, Miguel, so the pause, like, that shouldn't matter and stuff, right? Because, well, they're not. He basically just said that they're really not going to pause until the labor market weakens. So when the labor market weakens, they pause. That means, like, oh crap, like, it's going to crash down. It's going to go down a little bit. So what they're trying to do is, like, have that happen, but kind of slow. But regardless or not, that's what's going to cause a nice, decent crash and stuff. Right. So depending on when this ends up happening, I mean, it could, as an example, I'll just say this, like, let's just maybe Bitcoin's at 31K, 41K. Let's just say 41K, just because I like the number. It's better. It's bigger.
Yeah, I'm looking 42. I don't know. I just feel
44 then, Charlie.
Like Bitcoin go to 42.
$44,000. But let's just say it's at $42,000, and it could Bitcoin could very easily dip down to like low 20s. Yeah. And that's a really significant dip. And so once we start getting like, oh, things are getting a little long in the tooth here and the market's really pumping. I mean, we've had nice little altcoin runs and nothing too crazy, but we've had like 2 to 3x's on stuff. Most coins who are decent, who are like have communities and stuff, have done like a 2x. Like Hex, 1 point. Let's just call it 2. Like a let's call it 2 cent low where someone could have got in. It's sitting at 5 cents right now. Not bad. 2.5x. Hex, 2.5 Hex on Hex on Beats or something like that. You hit 2 cents. I think it's at 7 or 6 cents right now. Yep. So 3x, and you're seeing sort of that sort of thing. Some coins are up 50% on the low. That's pretty bad performance. To a 2 to 2.5 is more of an average. To then a 3 and a 4x on, like, wow, these really performed crazy.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of dudes that have done 10, but I was just like, whoa.
Yeah. Those are like whoa. So so with those kind of gains, right? Imagine if BTC doubles, right? You're sitting, if let's just say as a Hex as an example, or I'll use Hex as an example, right? If we're sitting on a 2.5x, you could be sitting on a 5x at least, or higher, right? On beats, I mean, shoot. I mean, if it's 7, it could like now that's just like a perfect like it just doubles from there. Obviously, when that ends up happening, you always get an overperformance and then some lag behind and then shoot up. So not everything's pumping exactly with each other, but within a time frame, like you get these really big gains where like you might be up on some position that did pretty good. You might be up 14x.
Yeah, it's usually about it's like the last throws of that. If it gets kind of like a crazy overhaul, like we experienced that in 2017, it's like about a month to 2 months. Right. It's like a month, like it was like mid-November of 2017, things were like normal. Then mid-December, Bitcoin topped, and then mid-January, Ethereum and some alts topped.
Right.
So it's kind of like that overthrow of the top of the market. We didn't quite have anything as crazy as that. Yeah, we didn't have like the whole market kind of do that this time around though.
Yeah, David's like injective protocols up 135% in the last 30 days.
So a little bit more than a double.
More than a double. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So I say like a 2.5x or something like that. Yeah, it's like that's pretty much in range and stuff on a lot of and that's good. That means like the whole market, it is that whole thing where Ethereum lifts up all boats, but then after that people are like, oh crap, the bottom might be in. So they're really adding heavy capital on some coins, and then there's other coins where they're good projects lower. This is why like we like Beats so much. It's a smaller market cap coin, but people really care about it. So like this is why it's performed so well, and that's kind of the bonus of like something like Hex is that its liquidity isn't like it isn't like $100 million of liquidity, right? Like and then there's some coins that just have a ton of liquidity and they don't really move as much and stuff like that. Yeah, or like they have a crazy admission schedule, but like on average of like 80-20 rule, 80% of coins are doing pretty well. So you double the price of BTC and Ethereum, you start getting some nice levels, and that might be a decent time to maybe take principal out and with some interest. When it dips back down, buy your position back, and you're sitting on some decent cash. And this is what we've been preaching for the last Crypto Mindset course and the future one as well that we're planning to do in a bit of time. That course is going to be a lot more focused on getting your hands dirty within DeFi, working DeFi. Yeah. So it's all our courses have always been DeFi since the beginning. I mean, the very first course we ever taught, we taught people how to use Uniswap, and that was like people were like, "What the hell is this shit?"
Yeah.
Like,
then 15 minutes later, oh, that was easy.
Yeah, that was easy. And they're like, oh, you buy shitcoins and they go up. Got it.
And then they get addicted. No. That was good. That was a good one. Yeah,
I'm a pusher man.
Well, it was funny because, like, we literally have introduced about 10,000 people to DeFi, which is great.
At the least, and that's not even, and can you imagine some of the people who are shadow watching the channels as well?
Oh yeah,
just mention. I mean,
well, yeah, if you include the number of views, we've had
billions of people, all of India, the Philippines, but people who watch the last stream will get it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna be doing a lot of callbacks to Charlie's stream today. But let's continue on. Yeah, so that's kind of why the pause is so important, because he's literally telling this little sentence here, it doesn't seem that like, it seems just kind of a pass by. You can just totally miss it. But he's basically saying is like, we need to kind of keep increasing rates until the numbers stop being as strong. What does as strong mean? It means going down, or like, oh, it's hard to get a job. Worsening, tightening economic conditions.
Yep.
Not great. I mean,
yeah, because they don't. If they say it directly, the news sources are going to blow that up.
Right, and this is why this dude's asking these questions. Is like, so when you're predicting or like secret information, you get like he's asking pretty spicy questions.
Well, yeah, he's trying to bait him into shit.
Yeah. So we got a $6.99 Canadian dollar, which is about $2.50. No, Canadian. No, just do you think Hedron might be a play right now? It looks like we might be getting a late pump as everyone is FOMOing into Hex. That maybe, yeah. It's because right now there's not much of a I mean, obviously you always have a little narrative every couple months when you have the HSI auctions and stuff, right. which does get rid of supply, which is good. But yeah, I mean, right now the one with the storyline. Like the one with the storyline right now is Hex with V3, and then shout out to the guys at Fiat and stuff like they're going to have a coin coming out as well. So maybe some sort of Hedron pump might happen up there with people borrowing money. That's interesting. We'll see. Who knows?
Well, only one way to find out.
But
that's how we play crypto.
That's why we play crypto, man. But I've been DCing into Hedron pretty religiously. I forgot what I bought. Did I buy 10 or 11? I can't remember what I bought. I bought low. Yeah. No, 13. I'm sorry. 13. I didn't buy 10. You son of a bitch. I bought at 10. Like, it's like I always buy, like when I bought it at like 1.9 cents for Hex, they're like, I bought 1.6. Oh, great for you, bro.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, bro. Yeah.
Thanks, bro. Humble brag. No, but I love when people do that. Like when I bought like Ethereum at 930, someone's like, "Oh, bro, I got 890," or like I was like, "Good job, bro."
I remember helping a lot of people, throughout all those prices. So yeah.
Hey, beautiful. I mean, that's what we're here for. I mean, like but that's kind of one reason why I do that sometimes is just like to give, it's like, hey, this is where I'm doing my dynamic DCA right now. Like my step here, and it's worked out pretty well and stuff like. But like I had that number pre-selected for quite a long time. Like I was going to do like 1 point. I don't like doing the round numbers and stuff. It's just
because that's where, I mean, usually those kind of are where exchanges avoid bringing price if that's going to happen, which sometimes does happen.
Beautiful. One more super chat just so we can get back to it and stuff like that. But shout out to Art.
I think we had one from Crypto Boogie a while back too.
Oh, we did? Okay, then I'll go back on some of these in a bit. Oh, you're right. Yeah, Crypto Boogie, I can see two scenarios for the Fed. Keep rising rates higher than 25 to 5.25, or do we hold 25 all the way down? Now, that is an interesting question. So what he's talking about is basically right now with this current Fed increase, we're at 4.5%. Or 4.75. 4.75 on the Fed rate. So a couple more increases, we're at 5. And once we get to like 5.5, 5.5 is that zone where like things could start breaking.
Right.
That is a very like dicey place. Like even I get a little nervous about that because there's some counties here in the United States that borrowed money and stuff. So it's like imagine your city, the city of Fresno borrowed money to build roads and stuff like that, and then some of these loans are like they're variable. So these payments start going up. You could actually get some small towns in America going belly up, and not everyone's. And some of them got fixed rates and stuff like that. But this happens. Yeah, this happens. Just like some like you have some cities like they will always lend Los Angeles. They'll always lend San Francisco. Like it's just because it's like even though you never see it anywhere, but they'll always lend the money because it's like, oh, it's big rich town. They got taxes. They could like it's kind of crazy. Like I forgot the family who owns the water for San Francisco. This is a really interesting story that I mean we're going off the rails there a little bit, but we're going back to this, but it's important just to show you like how much money there is in like commodities and how much money there is in this whole world. Is that there's this family who stay anonymous because I don't remember their names, who owns basically most of the water supply for the city of San Francisco. They basically cannot go broke because anytime they need money, like I remember my teacher told me, my economics teacher told me, like all they have to do is raise the price of water by a fraction of a penny, and they get $50 million. True. Like that.
That's beautiful.
Just perma-printer.
Yeah.
Perma-printer.
I mean, hell, dude. Yeah, water is the most important thing.
But that's how they kill you. Death by 1,000 cuts is like, and then eventually, like you got 37% taxes.
Yep.
In California. Fuck. And then on top of that, state tax, oh, forget it, dude. Like, man, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, California's bad.
Yeah. I love the California, well, not recently. Oh, it's been cold. But yeah, it's just, that's what happens. There's an inching away. But usually every state's got something. Here in like Nevada, it's gambling. Everyone's gambling, so the city's making like tons. Like they intentionally like have like, when you hit a slot machine or you cash out more than $1,200, $1,400, you have to pay taxes on that. So the state gets tons of money on that. But if you actually look at it, because of inflation that's going on, people are betting larger and larger amounts of money over time. That back in the day, in the 80s, that was a big jackpot. That was a kind of that's like today, that would be something like hitting $4,000, $5,000.
Hitting what?
Like $1,400 today.
Oh, $1,400.
But back in the 80s would be like $1,400.
It's about 4x.
Yeah, it's a 4x. That's a decent jackpot. So you should pay taxes on that, sure. But nowadays, it's in that time. If you just do the math on it, it's like hitting like a $500 hit.
I've noticed the same thing with game shows. Game shows have not like kind of kept up with inflation.
Right.
They're just kind of like, we'll get away with these. These normies still are okay with just getting $50,000 for a prize. So
yeah. And there's these small game shows too, where like $50,000. Oh my God, $50,000. Which with $50,000 can change your life. Of course.
It's a whole year's salary for a lot of people.
Right, but when $50,000 was the game show price back in the 50s.
Yep.
Man, you guys.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I would say that's a totally different story. I would go even back in the 80s though. Like it's still significantly different.
I I would if they had Supermarket Sweep here in Vegas, I'd do it right. Dude, that is one show I loved as a kid. Supermarket Sweep, forget about it.
Yeah, I never got into that one. I like The Price is Right. The
Price is Right.
One. Come on down.
I just loved it because you used to be like a freak. You cart and you're just trying to put the most expensive stuff in the cart. Yeah, it's a great game. But all jokes aside, man, let's get back to the economy doing terrible.
We needed to raise rates more than is priced into the markets, or than we wrote down at our last.
Let me go back a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about
This is what we think will happen. We make a tentative forecast and then we let the data come in. For example, if the data were to continue to come in stronger than we expect, and we were to conclude that we needed to raise rates more than is priced into the markets, or than we wrote down at our last group of forecasts in December, then we would certainly do that. We would certainly raise rates more.
Okay, so today, for people who aren't familiar with the FOMC, who actually is on the FOMC?
Take notes, you guys. This was such a great question that you don't really hear like too much of the background of like who's the members, how many members are there, what about their staffs. It's actually kind of a large organization. Most people think it's just like the heads of like JP Morgan getting to a room with like Jerome Powell and then that's it. Gotcha. But it's actually a decent amount of people.
So the U.S. Central Bank consists of a board of governors here in Washington. There are 7 governors. Those governors are nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, and we serve terms that are not synced up with the election cycle. So we're independent. There are also 12 reserve banks around the country which have a degree of independence, and so each reserve bank is led by a president who works there full time. All 12 of them sit on the FOMC. So that's 19 people sit on the FOMC. So it's quite a large committee, of which 12 vote in any given year. The Reserve Bank presidents vote on a rotating basis, except New York, which votes every year.
So when you vote, do you vote at the beginning of an FOMC meeting and then just kind of have discussions afterwards, or do you wait till the very end and then you vote?
No, we vote at the end. I mean, the FOMC meeting process takes, more than a full week. I'm talking to all of the participants, all 18 other ones, and staff has sent around memos, and there's something called the Teal Book, which is the staff's assessment of the, of the economy and international economy and monetary policy and all that.
So that is really interesting. So, like, even though they kind of, it sounds like just the staff, but they're actually they trust the staff so much that they literally go off of what those guys say is going on with the economy. So more or less, like these guys are just kind of like, I don't know if you've seen margin call before, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know why they pay me the big bucks?
Yep.
Right. It's because I know when the music stops. So so basically they're getting paid for basically having the experience to when to push the buttons.
Yeah, make decisions.
Make decisions. Making decisions out here.
Don't pass the buck,
business.
Jerome.
It's a business. But it is kind of crazy as you keep hearing when they talk about the staff, like how big the role actually is. It's very it's you could just completely skip that part over. But basically it's like they completely 100% trust what the staff is telling them, and then it makes you think like, who's in the staff? That is some crazy heavy duty economists then.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. So like legitimate, you can even see. I mean, obviously, there's a picture of him. If you look at Jerome Powell from 5 years ago, he looks a lot younger.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that when we first started the video. I was like, man, the guy is getting pretty up there.
Yeah, I remember the meeting where he first increased the rates and stuff last year, and no, I'm sorry, was it last year? No, 2000 at the end of 2001 or the beginning of 2022. He looked a lot younger even then. So I mean, like normally
the bear market sucked the life out of him.
Dude, look at my face right now. Look at these bags under these eyes. But
I've seen some shit.
I've seen shit. Shout out to everyone who survived 2022. That was crazy, you guys. Yeah. I ain't gonna lie, that was the craziest little drop like that. Me and Charlie were talking about this in private earlier today. We're like, you know, the sauce right here. And we're talking about in private about like there was like this 3-4 week period when Luna collapsed and everything like that, and we just had like Celsius, Voyager, and all these other things go down. That it was just you couldn't go. You just look at your phone and be like, oh. Like you just like you could. I look. Some of the first time I ever just taking a walk. Just like forget it. Like I ain't looking.
Yeah.
Because it was just. And then when you think it's done, another bad day, and you're just like, wow. Just continue.
I was just like, this makes for good content on my stream. But yeah, it is pretty brutal.
So shout out to everyone who survived that. But yeah. Let me continue on here.
And staff has sent around memos, and there's something called the Teal Book, which is the staff's assessment of the, of the economy and international economy and monetary policy and all that. Then we have an extensive discussion on the morning of the first day about the economy. Everybody
I forgot to say one thing. So normally these meetings that they're having, they would normally happen every 2 to 3 months. They're having them monthly. That's how serious like they are. Like it is. That's one of the reasons why he's also pretty run ragged and stuff. He's got a cough and stuff like. People I've heard of. I mean, legitimately, like he's starting to get run down a lot.
Damn.
Yeah, it is every month. So it's like imagine like they're doing like a little mini course once a week, and then the 1 week of recovery, and then you got to do interviews. So it's like really like they're getting 1 week to recover a month, and then they're like,
on the grind.
Yeah.
Talks about that. On the second day, we talk about monetary policy, and then we vote on monetary policy at around noon on the second day.
So does the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board speak first and say, here's what I think, or does he wait until the end and say, well, thanks for what you think, but let me tell you what I think? What do you do? First or last?
Different chairs have done it different ways, and so I've tended to do what my immediate predecessor did, I think. Well, this is what I do. I speak last on the sort of the economic go-around. So everyone else talks about what they think about the economy, and in their district, for example, if they're a Reserve Bank.
Pineapples in Hawaii. You start talking about pineapples in Hawaii?
What?
You never heard that before?
No.
No. So it's like, wow. Okay, I've gotten so nerdy on this Fed stuff. Like, there's like all these memes and stuff about basically like what he could possibly be talking about.
Okay.
So like it's like so he's like the last one to speak in the meeting. So he just starts randomly talking about it's like talking about Alaskan economy outside of like oil or something like that. Like it's just like what is this dude talking about? Because you can imagine like some of these guys have talked some just nonsense about part of the economy.
Right.
And he's just like, thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Mr. Kashkari. Asshole.
But that is interesting. So like this is like some of the first time I've ever heard this part, and like obviously this came out a couple days ago, but just hearing of like which way they end up going with so what he's talking about is like basically like they're about to do this whole giant forum and stuff to talk about the economy or the parts they're paying attention to. Like if they're, let's just say like I'm talking about the macro or like the fundamentals of a coin or something like that, and I just say it first. What I could say and some people want to go first. So some of the older chairmans and stuff would go first and let everyone else hear, like to intimidate them. What I think Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen, and him have done is basically basically let everyone else talk first. So he doesn't really he wants to hear more of an unbiased opinion because
that makes sense.
Because you could if I was just nailing one thing and your whole thing's about that, you might tone it down a bit. Or like
everybody's gonna follow what the leader does. Yeah. So
correct. Yeah,
that makes sense.
I forgot who was it. Greenspan. I think it was Green. I heard Greenspan was one of those dudes that went first, and basically just because he was one of these, like it was almost like Lyndon B. Johnson, how like he would lean into your fucking face.
He's just like authoritative. He's just like, "Fuck you. We're doing what I'm saying. I don't give a fuck what you say."
Yep. Sheesh.
President. And I listen to all that, and then I give my comments at the end, and I kind of sum up what people have said. And then I speak first on monetary policy.
Okay, so you've said your inflation rate target is 2%. But why 2% and not 3%? 3%, could be tolerable, really. I mean, for most of organized history, 3% is considered okay. Why do you want 2%?
So 2% is the global standard, and that is our objective, 2% as measured by the PCE index. And that's not something we're looking at changing. That isn't going to change.
That's not going to change.
Not going to change, no.
But, okay, so you need to get to 2%, and your goal to get there is by what period of time would you like to get there?
Well, we say that we're using our tools to get there over time. If you look at our forecasts, we expect 2023 to be a year of significant declines in inflation, and it's actually our job to make sure that that's the case. But I would tell you that, with inflation, headline PCE inflation is running about 5%. This is on a 12-month basis. Core is running at 4.4. My guess is it will take certainly into not just this year, but next year to get down close to 2%.
Okay, so 2% is firm. You're not going to get off that.
Yes.
Okay. So
raise rates until
the theory,
like spring of 2024.
Where the hell would that leave us?
If they need to.
If they needed to. Wow. What would that leave at 8% or something?
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
Whoa.
So, I mean, like, I don't believe that would happen, right? But that's what he's like. They want that narrative out there because the one thing in terms of what the Fed does, right? A lot of it is just narrative building.
Right.
Like if the economy, because it's manipulating a little bit of data and then narrative building and being like, okay, but there is like it's kind of like there's a core part to it, but then there's some fluff around it they can kind of, massage a little bit.
Right. Now, every time I hear them, like, we want to lower inflation, I'll just think I want to destroy jobs. That's what you should really hear, like, because like they're destroying the inflation now that slows the economy down. That does get rid of jobs, and it's
well,
the kind of like you
again, if you think about it as a numbers thing, you can't be too like worried about because you're like, well, if you look at the way that the jobs became, right, they created a lot in the first place by having kind of like an over gluttonous economy to some extent. So
no, the only reason I mention it is for everybody is just because like that is what's going to lead to a significant crash somewhere, like the soft landing, which isn't complete, like takes into depression, but more of like big drop, and then things can just calm down after that. Yeah. And at some point, like I do believe that they're probably going to hold, like, let's just say they get to 5.5% as an example, right? They get to 5.5%. If the inflation is steadily going down, and then they stop there, and they notice one more quarter, we're going to stop here. It's still going down with us just keeping it there. Good. We'll leave it there. They might leave it there, and then I actually do believe sometime in 2024 they might even lower it down 1%. I think they're probably gonna I think long term, like they would probably be better off doing like 3.5, something like that, actual rate, not as like 0%. So that means like if you would take out a loan for a house or something, you'd be like at 6 or something like that, or 5, and if you're really good credit. Something like that, yeah. Because right now, like I think you're reaching 7% on normal credit to like 8% on bad credit, or higher, basically. Yikes. Yeah, it gets even higher, and like this is why I said like real estate hasn't gone down enough, because it's like, and I mean I could beat the whole dead horse on real estate forever, but
it's just kind of a ridiculous spot, yeah.
Just this year, but next year to get down close to 2%.
Okay, so 2% is firm. You're not going to get off that.
Yes.
Firm. Okay. So the theory of raising interest rates is that it will decrease economic activity and increase unemployment. But you've been increasing interest rates for a while, and unemployment is now at a record low. So what's wrong with the theory? Why is unemployment not going high?
Oh, I got to go back. I got that face is beautiful.
Increase unemployment. But you've been increasing interest rates for a while, and unemployment is now at a record low. So what's wrong with the theory? Why is unemployment not going higher?
Well, the labor market is strong because the economy is strong. And as I mentioned, it's a good thing that we've been able to see the beginnings of disinflation without seeing the labor market weaken. It's just that there's a lot of demand for workers. In fact, if you look at the supply of workers versus demand for workers, demand for U.S. workers is now more than 5 million greater than the available supply. And the available supply consists of people who are either working or actively looking for a job. So this was not the case before the pandemic. The pandemic really had a significant, left a lasting mark so far on labor supply in the United States. The labor force
and I've wondered about about that, because you've actually, I mean, I would imagine with so many people having to live from home and not live from home, but work from home, that you probably had some significant other decide because they only count if you're looking for a job, right? So what if you just decide I don't want a job anymore, and I'm just staying at home with my kids? Because there's a lot of men or women that just have these jobs where they're just basically paying for their job makes a little bit like 25% more than the babysitter makes. There's a lot of that sort of stuff.
Really?
Oh yeah, there's tons of stuff. And then on top of that, you imagine like everyone got used to spending so much time with their kids. I bet you there's a lot of spouses that decided like, hey Jack, I'm staying home, Yeah. And that might be contributing to that as well. And then on top of that, you just had tons of people that like for the first time in their life, they got free.
I think that's a huge part of it.
It's the freedom. There's the child rearing, of course. We need that pretty heavily now. I mean, we need kids, right? In the United States, it's a Ponzi, the population Ponzi. That's the underlying Ponzi across everything. Like more people, more goods and services.
We're trying to get rid of that in Ohio right now.
Dude,
I mean, Jesus. I mean, that's a joke, but it's a bad joke because it's
not even a joke, bro.
It's just one of those things where it's just like, man, that can affect things really poorly.
I think they poison 10% of all the, fresh water in the United States. Like the Ohio River, like that Ohio River is donezo, bro. It's donezo. Yeah. It's donezo, dude. 10% of the water of America, bro, gone. Trash.
For a while.
Basura.
For a while.
Like I've seen rivers where like it's just sludge green now.
Is it that bad?
Sludge green. Like they're just like I mean, I could even show you it's on Twitter and stuff, but like you pull, they're throwing like cans into the river, pulling it out. They shouldn't even be close to the river anyway, and pulling it out, and it's like just like muck green.
Nasty,
dude. Ohio. I should play like Base God Ohio. Like, Ohio's become such a meme now, but it's pretty. I feel really bad for everyone.
No, I mean that's terrible. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible.
And then UFOs. Bro, they shot down 4 UFOs. Like that's like legit, like on factual paper. 4 UFOs shot down by like 2 by F-18s and 2 by F-22 Raptor. Shot to F-22 Raptor.
That's like saying I shot a deer that I couldn't really recognize, so it's Sasquatch. You know,
crazy. And then there's my dad was telling me like they shot one in Mexico too. They shot one in Mexico and they shot one over Canada as well. That was one. And they had stuff. They shot one near I think Alaska or somewhere over there, and they couldn't recover. They still haven't recovered it.
You know what I saw from China the other day?
What did you see from China?
Nothing crazy. It was just the Chinese are basically like, oh, the Americans are complaining and shooting down our satellites. Well, they've been putting their satellites over Tibet and these parts of China for years. You know, what's the problem?
It's in space, not in the sky.
Yeah, I think they're talking about balloons too. But you don't know like which, you know. Yeah, but like over Tibet, I would not be surprised. But anyways, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah,
you know?
That's Tibet. Yeah, free Tibet, right?
China, don't fuck with the countries China wants to basically keep under its umbrella, and you know.
And we're canceled. All right, back to Jerome Powell.
Lasting mark so far on labor supply. And the available supply consists of people who are either working or actively looking for a job. So this was not the case before the pandemic. The pandemic really had left a lasting mark so far on labor supply in the United States. The labor force participation rate came down, and there now is a shortage of workers, and it almost feels more structural than cyclical. So that's a significant issue.
Now, you've resisted, I think, saying what unemployment rate would be acceptable to you, I think. But is there an unemployment rate that you think would moderate inflation such that you would tolerate unemployment at 4%, 5%, 6%?
I guess I think about it this way. We have 2 goals that Congress has assigned us: maximum employment and price stability. Price stability, as we've agreed, is 2% inflation. Maximum employment means if you want a job, you can get one. So right now, the labor market is at least at maximum employment. Many would say that it is out of balance with more demand than there is supply. So what we're trying to do is get inflation down. We're not targeting a different unemployment rate. We're trying to use our tools to get inflation to come down over time.
In hindsight, would you say that when COVID hit the economy and we injected $5 trillion of fiscal policy into the economy, and the Fed did quantitative easing and other related things, kept interest rates very low, would you say in hindsight that was a mistake or was the right policy?
He got his butt tight. He got butt tight right there when they talk about QE and everything. Like, bro, he got in trouble about the teacher.
Into the economy, and the Fed did quantitative easing and other related things, kept interest rates very low. Would you say in hindsight that was a mistake or was the right policy at the time?
So I think you have to go back to the decisions that were made in real time, and it was something nobody had ever seen. The global economy came to a virtual standstill.
Because of you. You know, like...
I don't know if
partially.
Yeah, it wasn't just...
It wasn't
partially.
Yeah,
it was partially.
But
It was Greenspan, really.
Yeah.
It was Greenspan.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Tail effects from before. But yeah, it's like when you're part of the beast, those things get attributed.
Right. I've sort of defended like Ben Bernanke a little bit, and Jerome Powell here a little bit because it's like they are trying to fix this.
It's a hard job.
It's a hard job.
And it's underpaid. That's probably for sure.
Billions in the bank.
Well, yeah, except for their help with Nancy and there was some lady who got retired from politics the other day or something. And she was like super old, and then she was just writing laws like blatantly for all of the stocks she owned. Yeah, bro, it gets bad out there.
Hey, you guys, I joined Congress the other day.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost rather have President Camacho at this point.
President Camacho would be sick. Shut up, fool. No, but just going off of what he was saying, like on it, and just on a real note right here, it's like he kind of explains right now in a minute, and I'm like, did you want the Great Depression, or did you just want like this? I think what's going on is like there was winners in the market, right? And the people who won was in the capital class. The investors won big. They won big. Main Street got kind of like effed a little bit, but they still, even Main Street, like a lot of people who have their own business really did start making a lot of money and stuff like that. Because when even with the housing recovery, people were selling houses. The real estate market, like we pumped in real estate, but it wasn't 2008. Right. It wasn't that. So we had a recovery. Everyone was making money, and what's going on is that it's like a lot of people how they're mad at the Bitcoiners. Like, oh, you fuckers made all this money so fast, and then there's that. I think a part of that is the jealousy. Where like, no, it should be the other way around. Where like I've heard tons of podcasts with big YouTube channels, small YouTube channels who own businesses and stuff, and they're kind of crying over like the fast wealth and money of like crypto and stuff like that. And the same thing with equities as well. There's a huge amount. There's people that get kind of, they roll their eyes like, oh, you made your money from stocks. Oh, nice. I
don't know. I really don't get people who like hate on other people because of like how they made their money. It's like,
well, from slavery. Hopefully
well,
not.
I mean, I'm now,
Charlie, I can poke a hole in anything.
Jesus Christ,
indefensible, Charlie. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know what I mean. What I mean is like, from all legitimate sources of earning a living.
Okay, got it.
Jesus Christ, bro. From all legitimate sources of earning a living, like, who cares? Like, if you clean toilets or versus, if you're like the best toilet cleaner in the world, you can do that en masse, scale that fucking business. Great. That's why I like Dirty Jobs, with Micro.
Oh, great show.
Great show because it's just like, that's some of the best businesses to have because you have a barrier to entry, which is people don't want to do it, right? And then you can make a lot of money on it because like it's also very niche. So like that's kind of how I feel crypto is, right?
Right.
There's a barrier to entry because people fall into the narrative of what CNBC and the government tells you, right? Versus the people who are actually like experiencing it. It's very different, but it's kind of like, don't tell them how good it is. Just let them be fucking normies, stay on the outside. And we'll just enjoy the gains here as long as we can. And it's like, oh shit, mass adoption's happening faster than we want it to, So it's kind of nice when we got that news, or not the news, but the opinion of Charles Hoskinson, thinking basically that by the second half of this year, whatever legislation they're going to try to pass won't be passed for about a year and a half after that, right? Which is like beautiful, right? It just kind of leaves this
wide open.
Yeah, there's kind of like petri dish of crypto ready to just kind of like, percolate and basically make awesome gains. So it's going to be good.
I stopped it at the best. Look at his face. It's incredible.
Yeah, there's a couple times where I saw his face where he paused it today. I was like, that was interesting, but that one definitely
not bad.
Makes a cake. Yeah,
and that might be the new meme. It's like, hey, Hex hit 20 cents. Nip it.
It does look like you put him through like a rendering thing where it like over exaggerated it, but man, like that's probably how he feels during those meetings with Kashkari.
Someone meme this thing. This is going to be the new meme right here, the new template. Like, it's like, Cardano might hit $1 in the next bull market or $5.
It's possible.
Okay, I might throw some money to that. That might be the new meme right there, man. But all jokes aside, I think they're in a really tough position because they have to kind of like quell down the market a little bit for what previous people did in the cycle, as well as they did. I mean, they don't want to say it, but like they legitimately printed a ton of money that made the market really funky. But it stopped us from can you imagine maybe like one business owner would keep his business and do very well, but like 4 or 5 others would do terrible and be in poverty. So it's like, no one. I mean, this is why they picked Ben Bernanke originally to take over the Fed in 2008-9, because he actually got another prize for his. So all the work he did while he was doing his PhD and everything like that was in the Great Depression. So they literally picked the foremost expert in the Great Depression to make sure that shit didn't happen. Because what took us out of the Great Depression was all this stuff FDR was doing with like the not the Great Reset, but like
the New Deal,
the New Deal and stuff like that was, doing all these programs. I mean, one really crazy thing that they were doing was they would buy tons of food and just burn it. They would buy pigs and slaughter them. Like they would take milk and just like there's go look it up.
They would take chicken factories and burn them.
Yep.
We
talking about eggs right now? Oh, I got chills. I I forgot somewhere like I think just barely recently I'm not sure if it was a dozen eggs or 2 dozen eggs became more expensive than a pound of ground beef. Sheesh.
That's something.
That's something. But anyway, we digress. So let's continue on.
So I think you have to go back to the decisions that were made in real time. And it was something nobody had ever seen. The global economy came to a virtual standstill. People were talking about depression. People were talking, and we didn't think, we had no idea when we would get vaccines that worked. So Congress took very strong measures, and we took very strong measures. And you see where the economy is. You've got a very, very strong labor market, but you have high inflation. As I mentioned, we're at the beginning of getting that down. If you look around the world, though, at other countries, they're also experiencing high inflation, including countries that didn't do as much as we did, either from a fiscal or monetary standpoint. So that tells you, though, that a big part of this inflation is actually related to the pandemic itself, the shutdown and then the reopening. That's a big part of it.
Pause it right there.
Yeah.
Because that's the pausing and the reopening, right? The pausing of business and reopening business has nothing to do with the crash.
Yeah.
That's post-crash.
Yeah.
Right? And that's basically them trying to control what they want to control, along with, then just printing, right?
And narrative and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
We go back to previous Moongangs. We've talked about this quite a lot, but like, obviously, remember, when was this? Early 2021. Something really strange happened where maybe in 2020. I'm sorry. This is a while back when they started doing overnight repo market.
Yeah, that was October of 2019.
2019.
And the reason why I remember that is because if you Google October of 2019, New York Times repo, Fed repo, something like that, you can find the New York Times article that Jerome Powell just basically says, inflation's transitory, and basically, we're not really doing quantitative easing here. We're just doing this thing called repo, and he's explaining repo, and it's exactly what quantitative easing is. And then by the time the pandemic comes, right, they've been doing quantitative easing from September to March, right? And then when the crash happens, all of a sudden you got the pandemic happening, being like, oh, we need to return on this money printer to get us out of this, because that's what caused the crash, is the pandemic. And like, it just gave them an excuse to turn on the money printer and actually call it QE without anybody really blaming them for anything, because there's a crisis they're solving.
Charlie, pin on the head. That was beautiful. Yeah, it's exactly what happened.
But it's not the history that they're going to tell.
Right. Like, what is it, like, history's written by the winners, or whatever. Like, they're trying to rewrite history a little bit there.
Yeah, because nobody actually wants to go back and look at the exact things that happened in the timeline. People just be like, oh yeah, I'll take your summary as the word
face value. Yeah.
I mean, look at the fucking Warren report.
Right.
I'll just take it at face value, even though, like, people like LBJ and Nixon said there's probably other people involved. But who gives a fuck?
JK.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so just one little quick thing about the overnight repo market is basically the banks started getting to the point where they didn't trust each other, who was insolvent, who wasn't. So they stopped wanting to lend to each other. Or what that means is like lending cash overnight, and they pay them in little interest and stuff. So it's like, I'll lend you money Friday night and you pay me back Monday when you open. And then, because the way the rules work is this, as long as you're like $1 in profit or $1 from being insolvent, you then can function the whole freaking week. So what happened is nobody was taking money.
Some good credit.
It's some great credit. And it got so crazy there that the Federal Reserve forced JP Morgan and some of these banks to grab first in order to give confidence, because no other bank wanted to be the one to grab the money, because they said, hey, you guys take the money for like a week or 2 weeks. No one was touching it. He's like, no, we're strong. We are the strongest banks right now. We have our deposits
totally solvent.
Totally solvent. Totally.
Just as solvent as Celsius.
Voyager. But that happened, and then from there, so they forced the big banks, and then, okay, everyone started nibbling, and then that looked like it solved it for a while, and then it started breaking again. More problems. And I'm not saying whatever happened in the shutdown, I don't know. Like, whatever happened in the shutdown wasn't real, but it was like either it was real and they just took best case scenario, it was real, and they decided to make lemonade or take lemons out of lemonade or whatever and make that and stuff. And decided use the veil of what you just said. Basically, use the veil of like the pandemic in order to print money because. No. This is a pandemic. We need to print money for this. This is very specific.
Yeah. Well, you know what I remember very vividly during the time, right, was there's a lot of people, well, there are some people, right, who are like, we should not shut down the economy for the fucking flu. Right. And I don't see people, for the most part, dying on the streets or anything like that, right? So, I think it's probably good that we don't shut the economy down for more than 3 months, right? Was what a lot of people were saying. But then there's also, because of, there are just people who are just like drinking the Kool-Aid, they're just like, oh, like people are dying out there. In Italy, there are people literally dying on the streets, we need to do this for the safety of people. And they drank the Kool-Aid and they believed that shit, right? And it's like, no, they didn't need to do that. But then comes the most important part of the puzzle, which is BlackRock doing land grabs, right? Yeah. So essentially in the Netherlands, right, a lot of that Dutch farmland, right, is being divvied up. Also city parts of, Amsterdam and stuff being bought up, all that stuff by BlackRock. And they're doing that in foreign countries. They're also doing that parts of America, right? And, it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, we have a lot of money during these times, so we can kind of just get those things on the monopoly board, and they get Park Place and put everybody else on the beginning of the board or whatever.
You guys, I want you guys to understand something. So they are playing a psychological game with you guys. They you think about this, Charlie. There probably was like 3 checks that were giving out for the COVID relief, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
And the Lakers got one of them for small businesses.
Right. I'll get to that one in 1 second. But like the checks everyone received is not enough to move. Look, it pumped up Amazon a little bit because people were just buying stuff on there, or maybe people pay their bills.
Oh, right. In terms of like the checks people got in the mail. And stuff. Yeah.
That money, even though it was significant-ish, if you really think about it, like what the hell's $1,400?
Oh no, it's gone in a month.
Yeah, it's nothing. So there's this whole like thing is like, these checks and stuff. It's like, I was like, bro, it was like what? Some people got 1 check. Some people who were really in financial need got like 3.
Well, a lot of people just bought fucking big screen TVs.
Right. But that right there, right? That money was wasted pretty fast. It moved the needle a little bit, but it wasn't enough to cause all this. What it really was all the PPP loans.
Right.
The small business, basically just like borrow money for 30 years and they got to pay it back, basically.
Yeah, you literally don't have to pay it back. Yeah.
And I'll talk, I know, I'll get the numbers on it, but basically the first big loans everyone got, that was for free, basically, the businesses.
Yeah,
cool.
In the contract it was just like, yep, you'll never have to pay this back.
Right. There's secondary ones.
Yep.
Those do have a payment.
Yep. I think that was within 10 years? I can't remember.
Well, payments had to start about like either this year or
next
year.
Yeah, they started like a year or 2 after they started the payout, right?
So some people maybe spent the money, and that I think that's really the money, the speculation money that really pumped this up, as well as all the banks, BlackRock. That's what really did this. It was small. It was basically a small business owners to large business owners that got all these checks that spent it crazy. It wasn't the guy who got $1,400 for a COVID relief check. I get so irritated when I hear that because they like everyone believes it. Like it's just like you hear it so much you don't even second that. Like all the money they printed, all the COVID checks didn't do it.
Well, people still believe that the dollar is backed by something too, though, and people still believe that banks actually hold dollars in their vaults. So it's one of these things where people are so not financially educated and they're not going to do too much to do effort to become financially educated, that they'll believe whatever narrative is told. Right. And that's the beauty of the position a lot of the finances leaders are in America, is because they understand that a lot of people don't understand what they're talking about. Right. And that's a powerful. It's kind of like the priests in the Catholic Church back in the day. They're the only ones who are literate. Right. All the peons couldn't read, so they control everything. Once the printing press came out, shit. Oopsies, you guys, you're gonna start like kind of interpreting this shit. Oh fuck.
No.
And then Santa Claus isn't real anymore. So it's the same thing with money, right?
Yeah.
Like once I think Bitcoin is really that nail on the door of the
church.
the church of financial markets of the United States. And now people are like us, and people like the Moongang and everybody is financially educating themselves out here and being like, ooh, that's what the Wizard of Oz is really doing out here. All right. Okay, now I gotta, that's the people who will survive, the people who try to understand that game. The people who are just like, yeah, I'll believe that and just go watch Netflix. I don't really care about money. But I work every day for 12 hours for my paychecks.
Charlie,
why would you not care about understanding how money works?
Asking too many questions, Charlie.
Just saying.
Here's his Xanax.
Got too much? No, we're good.
Quantitative easing program has increased the balance sheet, I guess, of the Fed. And what is your balance sheet now?
I think it's $8.4 trillion.
You must sound like
around there, give or take.
I gotta hear that again.
Quantitative easing program has increased the balance sheet, I guess, of the Fed. And what is your balance sheet now?
I think it's $8.4 trillion.
You must sound like sounds 8.4 trillion.
That was yesterday's number.
Okay, all right, 8.4 trillion. What would you like it to get down to over the next year or two? Is there some lower number?
So we are in the process of shrinking the balance sheet passively, I should say. So what happens is, as Treasury securities on our balance sheet mature up to a cap,
that type of wording is always kind of like, oh, you said the truth, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm gonna put it in the narrative spin.
Right. And on top, and then one thing too, he doesn't ever say a number either. Like, so I love the questions he's asking. He's like, so what number would you want to get that to? Anyway, so he continues on that. He just doesn't say the number basically. So really interesting. So people who don't know, just like, so they basically hold a lot of bonds or a lot of things like that, right? So in order for them to sell it off, they really don't do anything. They just let it expire and they don't repurchase, and then the money. It goes back and it gets paid off, basically. So that's what's going on. So they only allow a certain amount, and some of them they'll print more money to rebuy back in. So that, they'll make the bit of the interest, and the interest ends up going to the Treasury. And then a little bit of money goes to the Fed to keep it open, but then some of it goes to the Treasury as extra, basically a surplus. And right now they're making surplus to the Treasury for sure. So but a lot of that debt is actually very bad stuff. It's a lot of pretty shitty mortgages. Like they bought a lot of the trash from 2008. So a lot of those mortgage-backed securities they own I would guesstimate they're like $5 trillion. That is garbage.
Yeah, it's
garbage. Trash, but over time they will on the toilet, crap it out slowly. But it's like there's no way they're like that's not going to go to zero. I mean, 10 plus years. You couldn't. I mean, no,
it's like radioactive.
Yeah, no market could handle that much and stuff like that. Like I love like talking about like something like Margin Call or one of these 2008 movies and stuff like that, where they kind of talk about like they put like one good piece mixed in with 4 dog shit and they call it a AAA and stuff like that. So it's sort of like that. It can be digested over time, but it takes time, and the market can only handle so much. Like you couldn't market sell $8 trillion. We're talking like this is what I'm saying. Like for most normal persons, right? Like a lot of the market caps of crypto are like false as well, right? Because the liquidity, how much Bitcoin could you really sell before you crash Bitcoin? I mean, like what, $400-500 million and stuff, $1 billion, and you would like shoot Bitcoin down pretty significantly. Hex, same thing. I mean, relative to its liquidity, like there's this whole thing that Richard talks about and other people talk about, where like if everybody in your neighborhood sold their house, your house they would sell, but the price would collapse pretty badly. If everyone in your city sold, you basically look at Detroit.
Yep.
3,500 free. Can't give it away. Yeah. So it's supply and demand and stuff like that. So it's we're all playing these little Ponzi games in a way where like.
Well, yeah, and it's like you call it a Ponzi, but you can also just call it that's how like a lot of economies are built, right? It's just
that's how it works.
Hey, I'll do this for that, and everything. But if there's nobody to perform the economy, like of course, it's going to be ghost town.
If we didn't have banks, now this is people like, if we didn't have banks, this and this, right? But if we didn't have banks, most houses would probably be maybe like 1.5, 2 years of the average salary of a person, maximum. You would have $75,000 houses. You would have $50,000 houses. You would have $150,000 houses, because no one's giving you the loan and stuff. So basically, you have to come up with the cash. And then people think, oh, that's like such a great world. Well, try to save that much money on that income. It's not easy. It's then that so like the banks do help people like there's upwards mobility with loans and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But this is also how the financial markets like
so that's where it does become a Ponzi, right?
Oh, I say the word bank now it's Ponzi now.
No, it's just because then people just borrow their entire lives and they're like, haha, you can't get me when I'm dead, you know.
Fact.
It's true. It is true. But I mean, they can get your inheritance, right?
Right. There's some pretty messed up stuff I've heard of, like, don't do this, you guys. Pretty messed up stuff that I've heard people do where, like, they look for elderly people and they find them and just max out their credit cards.
Yeah.
And then just they're close to death anyway. And they're like,
yeah, it's pretty bad.
Pretty bad. And it's usually not the family. It's literally like people identity jacking and stuff like that. Like weird stuff. Yeah. People messed up.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
We are in the process of shrinking the balance sheet actively, actually passively, I should say. So what happens is as Treasury securities on our balance sheet mature up to a monthly cap, the balance sheet shrinks in that amount. Same thing with mortgage-backed securities as they are prepaid or so the balance sheet is shrinking. In terms of the target level of it, we haven't put a specific dollar number on it. The idea is we're in a regime of ample reserves. Reserves are basically deposits at the reserve banks. And when we get close to that level where we feel that reserves are ample, kind of where we were before the pandemic, then we'll slow down and we'll sort of test where we are. But it'll be a couple of years, we think, till we get to that level.
The Fed does not sell securities. They waits for them to mature, and then you just cash them in, right? You're not in the market selling securities that are not yet mature. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's also correct, though, that we've said we would consider sales of mortgage-backed securities, but I will tell you that's not something that is on the list of.
Sheesh, that was kind of dark right there. But like he did strongly say no, but it is an option.
Not yet mature. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's also correct, though, that we've said we would consider sales of mortgage-backed securities, but I will tell you that's not something that is on the list of active things being actively considered. So
there's some people that are worried about the federal debt limit and that we might not be able to.
Okay, here comes base Jerome right here. Base Jerome right here. Listen up.
Extend it on time. We have $31.4 trillion of debt. Are you a little worried about the debt limit not getting extended?
Ridiculous.
Just a little bit of money here. Don't worry too much about it.
I got to hear that number. That was so wild out of pocket.
On the list of active things being actively considered.
So there's some people that are worried about the federal debt limit and that we might not be able to extend it on time. We have $31.4 trillion of debt. Are you a little worried about the debt limit not getting extended?
So the debt limit is really something for the fiscal authorities to deal with. The Fed, our only role in this is that we're the fiscal agent of the Treasury Department. We're not a policymaker on that. And I will just say this. This really can only end one way, and that is with Congress raising the debt ceiling in a timely fashion so that the U.S. can pay all of its bills when and as due. That's what has to happen. And if that doesn't happen, no one should think that the Fed has the ability to shield the financial markets or the economy from the consequences of moving too slow.
Damn. Right there. He just said, if they don't raise the debt ceiling, stop all this bullshit of the left and the right. If they don't raise the debt ceiling, we're going to crash so bad we can't save this thing.
Yeah.
Dude.
I mean, they are kind of on the precipice. They've been like that for a while.
Yeah.
Or razor's edge.
But do you know how you could save yourself, Charlie?
Oh, yeah. I've heard there is a place. There is, a place for that.
Yeah, there are definitely some places for that and stuff like that. But here, let me just...
You don't have any program.
Where are we going with this here?
Yeah. It's late, you guys. It's late.
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Place ready to go if, in fact, the debt limit isn't passed in time.
This is something that Congress has to deal with.
And the so-called $1 trillion gold coin solution is not one you're in favor of, I guess.
As I said, this ends in only one way, and that way is Congress voting to raise the debt ceiling so that the U.S. can pay all of our bills.
Okay, in terms of
and for you guys who haven't heard about the $1 trillion coin, I mean, have you heard about this, Charlie?
$1 trillion coin.
Yeah, so they have considered to make these crazy ornate, like their coins are this big.
Oh, I think you told me about this.
Yes, so it's basically a way for them to account for like to pay off debt or to give a significant amount of money. Like they're like we can't keep printing literally trillions of these dollars. So
Zimbabwe did.
Charlie.
I mean,
it's true.
He's got to follow the playbook. You know what's out there.
So basically, the way because remember how we talked earlier in the stream that most people, if you have a bank account on J.P. Morgan, I don't know, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and stuff, you technically are already using a cryptocurrency. It's mostly digital. You do have a little bit of cash.
You're using a digital currency.
You're using a digital, not cryptocurrency, a digital currency, right? Well, what they're planning to do is what they could do, and Jerome doesn't like to do this, but like it is an option where they could actually, if they really did need to print a lot of money, since most dollars are just zeros and ones on a spreadsheet, they can just physically deliver a $1 trillion coin, a coin so they just take the coin, it's worth, and because it's $1 trillion and the Federal Reserve says it is, they can now the Treasury has $1 trillion. That's what it is, and it's a way for them, like 5 years later, this is the 1 quadrillion coin.
like I said, it just gets into idiocracy. It just becomes so ridiculous that eventually people won't be trading these seashells anymore, right? It's like when people a couple hundred years from now look back, you're like, you guys were using fiat, you fucking dirty plebs, like it's like using seashells for fucking,
Right.
That's kind of how they look at it down the road.
And money has an illusion to it. So one of the reasons why they've really hesitated, like people are like, get rid of the penny. If you get rid of the penny, people start. So things move in like on
doesn't it cost more to make a penny than it actually is worth?
Exactly, it does cost more, but it's a very important thing psychologically for people and for businesses, because if you have a penny, right, that means Burger King, let's just use a burger as an example, right? McDonald's increases the price of the burgers by 3 cents. But imagine if the penny didn't exist, that means they would have to move by 10 cents. So you start
or
5. No. Well, yeah, 5, I guess. Yeah, 5 cents or so. But you see how it becomes a much more dramatic move.
Right.
So you get rid of the smallest. If you got rid of if there wasn't 100 million satoshis, there was it ends up like you get inflation faster and price increases faster. And on the top end too as well, we're like somewhere like Europe has these really larger bills, like the $500 euro bill, right? And one thing, the United States at one point had a $1,000 note. They're pretty rare. I mean, you could probably find it and stuff.
Yeah.
It probably costs a little more than $1,000, but nothing crazy. But these $1,000 notes did exist at one point, and that's one thing that people have been asking for quite a long time, to make $1,000 notes. But when you start going higher, you see.
So the question is, the most important question, of course, on the $1,000 note is who's on it.
Charlie Miguel, like,
yeah, you never know. But you had Jerome Powell on there with that face.
Yeah. Jerome Powell.
With that face, or the face,
disappointed dad face. But that is a very interesting question. Who the hell would be on the $1,000 note? That would be
Camacho.
I would have Teddy Roosevelt. That would be I like Teddy.
Teddy's cool.
Teddy's cool, man. Shout out to Teddy, boss dude. But cycle. It's all about, like, we talk a lot about narrative. We talked a lot about narratives today. We talked a lot about we talked a lot about these narratives. We talked a lot about these storylines that people don't go back in time. But people, like, this is why when we're doing this course and we're talking about the box, right? We're talking about the L7 loser, right?
Where's Pepe when you need him? Come on, we need one in here.
But when you look at it, right? One thing that, like, let's take Hex as an example, perfect example. Once the amplifier phase was done and stuff like that, once the big payday, all of it was done for on Hex and stuff, there was a big lull in the price and stuff, because it was a finished product, but there was no news, and also there's no evolution, and we didn't. People need action. People need news, right? And this is kind of why I said.
Well, I mean, when you're in a technology industry that is growing at such a rapid pace, right, that like people can't keep up with it, and then you say, I have a finished product that's basically perfect.
Right.
People will be like, okay. Like, people aren't going to, be putting into that much from that point on, right? It's always the beginning. So that's where Pulse Chain really came in, and it's like, okay, now there's a whole economy around this, right? Because it just like you said, it just kind of gives more energy to the community or the town that's around this project.
Right. So yeah. So you need these narratives and you need these storylines and stuff. Some people find it really dumb and stuff like that. Like sometimes even I find some of these things are really like, ugh, like it's just like I roll my eyes at it. Sometimes I'd rather look at a chart honestly than like that'll probably tell you more. But it is very important for the long term of a coin to have this overarching storyline.
Yeah,
you need this WWE storyline.
I mean, that's the thing that's kept Cardano going for so long. I'm not taking shots. I'm just saying,
it's true.
They weren't evolving for a while and they were getting away with it for the longest time. Because they would just basically talk above the market, right? But now they're finally doing shit.
Beautiful.
Consultation. Do you consult regularly with the Treasury Secretary or the head of the National Economic Council or the President of the United States? How do you kind of relate to the administration?
For a long, long time, 60 or 70 years, I think there's been a weekly breakfast or lunch with the Treasury Secretary and the Fed chair. And that's what I've had with Treasury Secretaries that I've had as Fed chair. I've also had regular, or call it irregular lunches with the head of the NEC. We also have regularly scheduled lunches with the Council of Economic Advisors, and that's really the institutional structure of our contacts with the administration.
So, in the way the Fed works today, if you could reconstruct the operations of the Fed, would you change the legislation in any way? Would you think the Fed operates in a way that's as efficient as you can realistically operate?
We're not looking for any changes to the Federal Reserve Act. I mean, I think it does work.
We don't want more work right now.
The structure that I discussed earlier, where you've got the 12 Reserve Bank presidents coming in, what that assures, really, it institutionalizes diversity of thought. So we get different people coming in who've got different backgrounds, different careers, and they think different ways. And I think that's enormously beneficial to our decision-making process.
So there has been discussion recently about the Fed, some Fed members, Fed board presidents selling their securities and maybe not doing everything they were supposed to do in terms of disclosing it. What have you done to fix that process?
We've put a new system and a new set of rules in place, which I think are best in class for a public institution like the Fed. And, the innovations were that if someone wants to sell something that they own or buy something, they have to clear that in advance with staff at the Board of Governors, and then you've got to wait 45 days for that to execute. Also, you can't own individual stocks, and you can only authorize these transactions or execute them during specific time.
They can only own NFTs. I was like NFTs. I think actually maybe, but indexes basically, or ETFs or mutual funds, and probably bonds, I would imagine. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised they're making a lot of money off of knowing which way the bonds go, possibly.
Times. And we just, of course, all of these are disclosed. If your idea is to trade things, buy and sell them because you think this stock is cheap and that kind of thing, that's just not something that will work.
So what is the salary of the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board?
It's around $190,000, I believe.
Okay, so you live on the $190,000. If you need to sell something, what do? You have to clear it for 45
days. He hit his lip there a little bit. He's like, hey, you're going to get me in trouble here, bro.
Dude, that was such a flagrant question. So how much do you actually make? Well, $190,000. Dang.
It's around $190,000, I believe.
Okay, so you live on the $190,000. If you need to sell something, what do? You have to clear it for 45 days? Or?
That's right. If we have family expenses that, if we have them, that exceed my salary, then we have to sell an asset.
You think that's a fair salary for the job, or?
I do. Yes.
You do. Okay. So today,
is it worth all that gray hair?
The amount of money in this room, it is what he's getting. Legitimately, this is bro. They're laughing because he's getting paid peanuts. Peanuts, dude. Yep. Yeah, and he knows that.
Well, look at all the gray hair. It's got to be worth more than that.
I know, but it's just just think if you look right there at the table, it says head table 1. People probably paid I wouldn't be surprised $2,000-$3,000 to eat dinner for dinner.
Up to $10K.
10. Yeah.
Up to maybe more. Who knows? But yeah.
Hey, I like the Gucci frames on this guy. This guy's got some frames right here.
How do you coordinate with central banks, let's say in England or Japan or China? Do you have regular conversations with them about what they're doing?
We do, and I meet 6 times a year in Switzerland with the heads of many central banks.
Crazy.
Even the small and medium-sized ones in Basel at the Bank for International Settlements. In addition, among the major central banks, I have regular dialogues going with most of them, and so what we're talking though about is really what's happening in the economy and how are you thinking about policy and that kind of thing. It's very important that we keep those discussions going because, particularly in a crisis, you're going to need to know each other and you're going to be able to trust each other.
And do you think the U.S. economy is pretty much in control of its own inflation rate, or are there events outside the United States like what China is doing or the Ukraine war that are affecting inflation and make you nervous about where inflation might be going?
We have the tools. The Fed has the tools to achieve our 2% goal over time. But inflation in the United States is, of course, very closely related to things that happen here, including the balance between supply and demand. It's also affected by, for example, commodity prices that are really set on the global markets. Oil and many agricultural commodities are priced.
That won't be for long. Mm-hmm. They're starting to be now. Where did I hear this from? Shoot. Basically, they're going to add one more oil index, basically for the oil price. Yeah. So mostly because there's a disconnect in terms of supply chains and stuff like that. So you actually could end up having a U.S. price or an American price versus a Euro price versus an Asia price, which are going to be vastly different.
Yep.
So, the Euro. I wouldn't want to be the Euro price.
Yeah, makes sense.
Globally, so there are certainly it's an integrated global economy and global markets, and we are part of that.
So you get data from all the various government agencies, but do you ever use anecdotal things like you go to the supermarket and you see prices are high and you say this price is high, or how do you ever get anecdotal things, or people ever call you up or friends and say, by the way, you should do this or that? Do you ever get that kind of information, or do you only get it from the government reports?
I mostly get data, but I will say I do believe in anecdotal.
Dumbass.
Yeah. That was such a crazy question too. Like he's like, so your friends don't tell you? Like
he's like, do you do some shady shit?
Yeah. Or like, yo, Jerome, man, this oil is kind of crazy right now, bro. What can you do?
Information is very useful, and one of the things the reserve banks are great at is all 12 of them have big operations where they talk to businesses and nonprofits, universities, every sector of the country and the economy, and they bring that back to the FOMC meetings and they talk about what they're seeing, because often, staring at data is great, but you need to have a story, and I think hearing the stories that people tell, it does help me to sort of assess what's going on out there. So, as the chairman of the Federal Reserve, is obviously an important job. How do you reduce the stress level you have? I mean, you can't be watching economic numbers all the time. So what do you do to relieve the stress other than interviews like this? The usual things. I read pretty light fiction, detective and spy fiction. I exercise as much as I can. As you know, I like to ride my bike. I play the guitar, play music. Wait a second, is that safe, riding a bike? Dangerous and
it's safe.
Sorry, it's safe if you stay on the bike, and
you're good at that.
That's what I try to do.
And you still play the guitar, or you're still...
I do. Yeah.
Your hair is awfully short for playing the guitar. Don't you need longer hair?
What is this conversation?
At this point, I'm just like, I want them to go all WWE and just sort it out on the mat.
This is like our conversation went off the rails with when we had Big Mo, and where did we go? What are we talking about right now?
And
you're good at that.
That's what I try to do.
And you still play the guitar, or you're still...
I do, yeah.
Your hair is awfully short for playing the guitar. Don't you need longer hair? Was your hair longer when you were younger?
Grayer. It's too gray, too.
So. Okay. So let me ask you about the issue of what it's like to be chairman of the Fed. You can't go have regular friendship kind of dinners or meetings, can you, with people? People treat you much differently, I assume, than they used to, right? When you go to a restaurant, are people listening to what you're saying or something like that?
Hey.
I have always thought that my jokes were funny, David. But no, so yes, it's... I've never been a public figure before like this, and it's very different. But, it's a great honor to serve. But yeah, when you go in public places, you have to be very careful about it.
And
what you
does the President of the United States ever call you with any advice, or you don't really? Did President Trump ever call you, or President Biden ever call you, or?
Well, I think it's a matter of public record that President Trump did used to call me from time to time.
What did he call you?
No, I haven't had that kind of. I haven't gotten any calls from President Biden.
Wow.
Okay, so the biggest challenge.
Whoa.
And Biden's that's interesting, right?
Whoa.
And Biden's taking credit. Inflation's been going down on my watch.
Yo. Hit a Pepe on that. That's crazy. What? What did we just hear, you guys? This man just literally said that, I talked a couple times. Like, I love how he's so good at avoiding questions. Like he's like, what nicknames did he give you? No. But that is quite alarming that, like, Biden has never called him one time. If I was president, I would at least talk to my guy at least twice a year at least or something. I mean, I know everyone's busy, but, like, you have to. This is the guy running the dollar.
This could be the other way that they do it, right? Is like, hey, I just have my stooges talk to that guy, have I just let my treasury guy deal with that,
Right.
Snoochie Manucci, he and Trump worked as a tandem team. They were like, what do you call it? Tag team, right?
Snoochie Manucci.
Yep.
But that is wild, you guys. But can you show the screen for 1 second? But you know what's not wild is the Citadel, you guys.
Depends on when you get in there.
Depends
Sometimes
when you get in there.
It is.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's pretty wild. All the memes and stuff. Please join up to the Citadel today, man. The Citadel is the place to advance yourself. We talk a lot about this. We just had our recent recorded call with the guys and stuff like that. It was really successful. We're trying out new tech all the time, and we are in the alpha phase of the Citadel. We have almost 400 members in the Citadel currently and growing, and we're planning to release updates, new things. We have a weekly newsletter where we talk about fundamental analysis, technical analysis, on-chain analytics, the memes, the charts.
All in a condensed form. It's not, you can really read it within 20, 30 minutes in a morning or afternoon on a Monday and just be prepared for what's ahead the rest of the week.
Yeah, as well as it's one of the best places to ask questions to either me, Charlie, or Mike as well and stuff.
Yep. Well, and also your peers.
Yeah,
right?
your peers
because
as well.
you do get some interesting information from other people doing their own research.
This chat is extremely active, as well as we hunt. Everyone hunts, right? We're all looking for information. We bring it home and stuff. Hey, check this out. Maybe not so cool. Oh, wow, I've never heard of that before. There's so many things. There's articles I was like, where the hell did you find this? And then we've been able to discuss them and stuff. And I've talked about them on stream as well and stuff. And it's the Citadel is probably the best place to get access to me and Charlie, as well as for every month that you're in the Citadel, you get $50 off the next crypto mindset course.
Yeah, so it's really like if you take one crypto mindset course every year, it's really like $50 a month to be in the Citadel, and then you get $600 off for being such an awesome moonganger on that course.
Yeah, and if you pay in crypto,
then you get even a plus 15% discount off. So the course is practically
Robin
free.
is blind. Robin is blind.
Practically free.
Practically free. But we did this as a big thank you to the guys. We wanted to create a chat where we concentrated our attention. I mean, obviously we've done a lot of courses over the years.
You can't do 8+ or 10+ different chats at the same time. Yeah.
Charlie, so what you telling me? You can't have you don't have three heads like.
Well, now with ChatGPT,
Gigachar.
we're just like, okay, we can start. All of a sudden it says buy Luna at $87. What? Wait, what? We didn't tell ChatGPT to say that.
But the Citadel is a great place to get information, as well as we can sort of. You can ask really more private questions and stuff in there as well as this is the first place where we're going to sell the tickets to the Crypto Mindset meetup, as well as many other things, swag, I got a couple other things I just want to say. I almost said it. But there's many other things for people who know Fight Clubs. It's one of the only places where you'll get access to this kind of service, and you are not going to find it anywhere else. You have to. I mean, it's a big club, and you ain't a part of it. But in this one, you can get in. So it's the beautiful. The more people in, the more powerful we are. The more services we can offer. The more education we can teach and stuff like that. And it's a beautiful family. It's my family and stuff. It's Charlie's family, and we've done some really great things. We bought the bottom on a lot of coins, and we were able to help a lot of people DCA, as well as maybe avoid a pitfall here and there and stuff like that. So don't ever feel ashamed of asking a beginner question in there. We answer all questions and stuff. And typically, if it's a very complex question, you give us like 24 hours to answer or something like that. Yeah. But thank you so much, man. Join the Citadel. Now back to Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell's quick, man. He was like, man, my jokes are funny.
President Trump did used to call me from time to time.
Okay. What did he call you?
No, I haven't had that kind of. I haven't gotten any calls from President Biden.
Okay, so the biggest challenge you have now is being able to keep a straight face, not telling people what you're going to do in the future, and look at the data and then come up with the right solution, right? That's mostly it.
I think the biggest challenge we face at the Fed is completing the process of getting inflation down to 2%. And what I want to point out is that we're seeing disinflation in the goods sector. We expect to see it in the housing services sector. And these are the three parts of the core PCE inflation index that we look at. There's 56% of the economy, which is the rest of the services sector. It's the biggest part, obviously. And we're not seeing disinflation there yet. And that's going to take some time. And we need to be patient. And we think we're going to need to keep rates at a restrictive level for a period of time before that comes down.
So when you made your speech the other day, when you talked about the Fed discount rate, you used the word disinflation 11 times. Not that I'm counting, but 11 times. So you were saying that disinflation is beginning to appear. Would you use that word 11 times again today after the jobs report, or you would be less inclined to use that word so much?
I might use the word.
I just want to make a snide comment, but it's like that's the guy like in junior high school you just wanted to beat up. Like he's just like that type of guy. He's like asking the retardedest questions.
That one was probably the most ridiculous one he's asked.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on.
I would certainly use the word disinflation, yes, which means declining inflation, and I would call it declining inflation too.
And today, what about the total debt of the United States, which produces some inflation, with 31.4, leaving aside the debt limit? Are you worried about the total indebtedness of the United States producing inflation, or you don't think that's a big problem?
Yeah, it's not the level of debt. I would say the thing I'd say about the level of debt is really. It's not. First of all, it's not the Fed's job, but I would say that we're on an unsustainable fiscal path at the federal government level. That has been the case for some time, and it's something we will have to deal with. And it's better to deal with it sooner rather than later.
Now, many of your predecessors were economists. You're trained as a lawyer. So they spoke in what I call Fed speak, which is to say incomprehensible economic language, which was done intentionally, I think, sometimes they would say. So you tend to speak in English. Is that
a man said, "You're full of shit. How you talk, bro?" but he is right about the Fed. The Fed talk's real.
Yeah,
and it is to confuse a lot of people. This is why I was very surprised the first time I did a reaction video to the Fed that people were like, "Holy crap! I didn't know this is what it meant."
Yep.
And sometimes you forget, just like when you know something, like sometimes when we talk in crypto, like people are like, you're talking to gibberish to me.
Yeah, people like, it takes me about like a month to get on the same track. Yeah.
Right. This is, what a question.
You're trained as a lawyer. So they spoke in what I call Fed speak, which is to say incomprehensible kind of economic language, which was done intentionally, I think, sometimes they would say. So you tend to speak in English. Has that been a plus, you'd say, when you're dealing with members of Congress, they can understand what you're saying?
I like to think so. I've made it a real priority to engage a lot with Congress. In our system of government, unlike the parliamentary system, our accountability is to the legislature. It's to the Senate and the House, and particularly the two.
I will say this about Jerome Powell, and I can't compare the other one with the female head of I forgot her name.
Janet Yellen?
Janet Yellen, yeah. Janet was pretty talkative, but like in terms of like the grown-ups in the room and stuff like that, I really think Jerome Powell is like pretty top tier when it comes
Yeah,
to.
he's pretty good for the most part.
Ben Bernanke was a lot more recluse, a lot more recluse and stuff like that. I almost feel like he was like the big bully on the playground. It's how he seemed, because when he walked in the rooms, like he was like commanding presence. It almost reminded me of a little bit of like Carl Icahn, how he talks. Like
He like doesn't give a shit if you get fired. He just
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna blaze through this entire company. Yeah.
there I was. I found out the company was worth twice as much if I sold it. So I fired everybody and sold it for parts. I mean, like that's what Ben Bernanke is. I mean, he's very cautious how he says things, but he does have a commanding presence. Where this, but maybe there was more private things going on, but like it didn't seem like he was really communicating. But in terms of like between like Congress and all that stuff, outside of like when he had to go to make the TARP or do this or that, outside of those things, where he's Jerome Powell is actively, like, I can tell him he's really working hard, and he really is kind of like out here like making connections and stuff like that, and trying to explain, because that is like he's right about the whole Fed talk, that they could just keep speaking these big words and just confuse Congress.
Yeah.
And Camacho.
To engage a lot with Congress. In our system of government, unlike the parliamentary system, our accountability is to the legislature. It's to Senate and the House, and particularly the two oversight committees, Senate Banking and House Financial Services. And I think it's very important that we respect that and explain what we're doing and listen to their concerns and share with them how we're thinking about things. And I think they appreciate that. But that is, we have this precious independence. We can't be removed from office. We serve these long terms. The other side of that has to be accountability. And the way for us to get accountability is to be as transparent as possible and try to reach, the people of the United States through their elected representatives. So this is a very high priority, and we're going to keep doing it.
So when you testify in front of Congress, how much time does it take to prepare for that? Is that a 1 hour preparation session, or is it a 1 day session, or a 1 week session?
These are supposed to be monetary policy hearings under the Humphrey-Hawkins Act. And they're actually on anything that's any political issue. So it's quite extensive. You have to prepare for everything that the Fed is involved in and many things that the Fed is not involved in. So it's a lot of preparation.
So when you get questions from some members, you have to bite your tongue and say, why are you asking a question like that? Or you never have that problem?
That never happens.
Never happens. Okay. All right. Well, good.
Right answer. He's a lawyer for sure.
So today, as you look at the country's economy, what is the biggest worry you have about inflation? Is it just that the fiscal policy is not completely under control? We have exogenous events outside. What is your biggest worry about inflation today?
Well, it's kind of what I was saying earlier, which is we're just at the beginning of this process, right? Goods inflation. So we need that process to continue. The whole thing the whole inflation began with people not being able to buy services, instead buying goods, and then global supply chains collapsing. And so you couldn't get goods, and prices of goods went up, and that's where it started. But that is now starting to get better as supply chains are improving and as people are rotating their purchases back to services. You move on, though, we're not seeing it yet in housing services, which is either rent or the ownership, the imputed costs of house ownership. But we expect to see that. So we need that to happen. That's another big part of the economy. It's got to come. It should come in the second half of this year.
Wow.
Then the biggest piece of it, and what I worry about the most, is when are we going to see disinflation or declining inflation in core services ex housing? So that's what I worry about. The last thing I worry about is just another exogenous event. It's a risky world out there, with the war in Ukraine and the reopening of China, and those are things that can affect our economy and the path of inflation.
Right. So the balloon was not your worry, though. You don't care about the balloon.
It's not within our ambit.
Okay. So today, the Federal Reserve gets data from all over the country. And are you convinced that you get the best data, you have the best data collection methods, or do you think it's not as modern as what Wall Street gets?
So most of the data that we get are just the same. We don't collect the data on unemployment or inflation or most things. So most of that's just government data, and a lot of that's, for example, very high quality. The labor market data is very high quality. What we get, which I think is better and different from what everybody else gets, is what I mentioned earlier, and that is the reserve banks putting together the beige book, putting together the beige book, and also coming in and sharing the anecdotes and what they're hearing, what's happening with each district is different. You have agricultural districts and energy districts, and so that I think our anecdotal, but also just the haul of information we get through that network is I don't think anybody else has that.
So do you consult regularly with some of your predecessors? I mean, obviously one is Secretary of the Treasury now, but Ben Bernanke, for example, or?
I do. I talk to former Chairman Bernanke. I talk to, Secretary Yellen. I still talk to Alan Greenspan now and again.
He's alive.
And when you're dealing with your colleagues on the Fed board, and you disagree with them, do you say, look, I'm the chairman of the Fed. I am the person who has to make the final decision, and this
I'm
is
your daddy.
Who's your daddy and what does he do?
That's crazy. Holy shoot. I mean, yeah, that's really crazy. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, a lot of usually it's not in office, but the previous presidents do actually have communication with each other and stuff. That's what's in.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. These are good questions. Yeah, this is good information.
When you're dealing with your colleagues on the Fed board, and you disagree with them, do you say, look, I'm the chairman of the Fed. I am the person who has to make the final decision, and this is what we should do, or you don't quite do it that way?
It's a process of reaching agreement, and I hear what people have to say. I tell them what I think, and then I'm the one who has to bring a proposal in front of the full committee, not just the board, but in front of the full committee on monetary policy, and it works. We have to reach an agreement, and we get to a place. I think you can tell today we are blessed with a diversity of perspectives on the FOMC with 19 people. Of course we are. But you have one thing that unites all of us, and that is a very strong commitment to getting inflation down.
So in some parts of Washington, people say, if you give me this, I'll give you that. I'll trade this for that. You never do that at the Fed when you're coming up with a decision. I'll do what you want if you do what I want. That doesn't happen ever?
Not really, no.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
Like you mean a better office or something like that?
Well, just, I'll say what you want me to say if you say what I want you to say or something. That never happens, right?
No, it doesn't happen. I mean,
and when you want to talk to members of the board, the Federal Reserve Board, do you go to their office or do they come to your office?
I like to do both.
Oh.
I mean, I really don't like to sit in my office all day and have people come to see me. I like to go barge in on people. And, I think it's much better to get up and walk around and see people.
But the Fed has been pretty good at avoiding leaks of its decisions. How do you do that? Because most people in Washington are not so good at that. How do you avoid leaks?
We do have, we've got very strict rules around confidentiality, particularly around the written materials that we have. We publish these things internally for the FOMC meeting, the memos and the Teal book and all that. But the other thing to remember, though, is, we're not trying to hide our decisions from the public. We actually, in modern monetary policy, we want the public to understand how we think, how we're thinking, and if markets really understand how you're thinking and a new piece of data comes in, the markets will go, well, they're going to do this. And it sort of happens organically. And that happened all last year. As we were, talking about raising rates, the market priced in rate increases long before we actually enacted them. So we want to be transparent. We're not looking to surprise markets with these decisions.
But from the time that you make your decision on the FOMC, whatever time it is at the end of the day, and your press conference is at 2 o'clock or something like that?
2:30.
2:30. Yeah. So your decision is made by 2 o'clock or whenever it is, or something like that. So you got a half hour, but you have to avoid leaks during that half hour because that's very market-sensitive information. How do you make sure nobody is calling their spouse and saying, guess what we're going to do?
Well, people take this very seriously. None of that happens. You're taking your professional life in your hands if you do something like that. I think people have a sense of self-preservation. So people are very careful about this information. There is a period of a couple of hours after the meeting and until we announce the decision, but we announced the decision at 2. The press conference is at 2:30. So I think it's a fairly small group of senior staff and policymakers that kind of know what happened and what we're going to say. And I just think everybody understands that you've just got to be really careful with that.
To go back to the jobs discussion, if next month you had another 519,000 jobs created, net jobs, would that be good or bad from your point of view? Have we a lot of people working, but maybe producing more inflation?
Wow. So that is that's such a good question.
Discussion. If next month you had another 519,000 jobs created, net jobs, would that be good or bad from your point of view? Have we a lot of people working, but maybe producing more inflation?
we don't have the luxury of thinking about good or bad. It just is what it is. So, but I would say again, most analysts, most economists would say that to get inflation down from high levels that we've had, if you look at history, there is some softening in labor market conditions that goes along with that, and that is still, very possible and indeed likely here. Some softening in labor market conditions. However, this cycle is different from other cycles because of where it came from, and it's just confounded all sorts of attempts to predict what it would do. So it is good that we have seen very strong labor market, but at the same time, we're seeing wages moderating. Wage increases are still very high, but wage increases have come down to a level that is closer to what would be sustainable, still well above what would be sustainable with 2% inflation. And same thing with inflation. Inflation is starting to come down and the labor market hasn't softened. We do expect that it will soften, but it will do what it will do. Our job is to get inflation down to 2% and preserve maximum employment.
So when the FOMC meets, as it does regularly, eight times a year?
Yes.
8 times. You pretty much know how the decision is going to come out before you actually get together because you've been talking to each other? Or does the meeting of the FOMC change minds in ways that you might not have expected before the meeting started?
It depends on the meeting. I talk to each of the 18 other participants at least once, and we go through everything. What's your analysis of the economy? How are you thinking about monetary policy? How are you thinking about the path forward and all of that? So in some meetings, I will say some of the time, you get into a discussion at the meeting which suggests that maybe you should communicate differently. And then we'll think about that. And we might actually take a break in the middle of the meeting and then go off with a smaller group and think about that and come back and make changes. Sometimes, though, everything plays out as expected.
And when you're having these FOMC meetings, I assume somebody sweeps the room to make sure there's no bugs and anything?
Yes, all that.
So no leaks.
Yeah, no joke. Wow.
Okay. And today, as you look forward, as we are going forward for the next remainder of this year, your basic view would be you'd be happy if the inflation rate were to get down by the end of the year to 2%, may be unrealistic, but your core inflation now or overall inflation you think is about 4.5%, something like that, or what would you say it is?
It's in that range. There are different measures.
Okay.
Yes, we expect significant progress on inflation this year, and again, it's our job to produce it. And I want to say again, we throw these numbers around, but the reality is we're going to react to the data. So if we continue to get, for example, strong labor market reports or higher inflation reports, it may well be the case that we have to do more and raise hikes more than is priced in.
So if I wanted to go get a mortgage on a house I was going to buy, for example, you would say I'm not going to be any better off waiting till next year than now because rates aren't going to come down that much at the beginning of next year, so I might as well get the house now, mortgage.
So surprising.
Because I'm kind of in the market right now,
Kind of in the market
Jerome.
to buy. Jerome.
Come on, help me out, bro.
Wink, wink. Wow. This guy he has some good questions, but he also has some whiff. He whiffs them pretty bad as well, but that's a pretty funny question.
Waiting till next year than now because rates aren't going to come down that much at the beginning of next year, so I might as well get the house now, mortgage.
So surprisingly enough, I get a lot of requests for advice on those kind of things.
And you don't give any?
And but I really can't.
Okay.
I really can't respond.
So
Legally.
On the whole, to summarize where you are, you're basically saying that the jobs data that came out was a little bit surprising, but in the end, you've taken it into account and you're pretty comfortable with the guidance you gave last time, and you're not prepared to give anything that's completely different guidance than you gave last week.
Well, I mean, this is a world in which we've had the labor market report, and I think it underscores the message that I was sending at the press conference and in the meeting that we have a significant road ahead to get inflation down to 2%, and I think there's been an expectation that it'll go away quickly and painlessly, and I don't think that's at all guaranteed. That's not the base case. The base case is for me is that it will take some time, and we'll have to do more rate increases, and then we'll have to look around and see whether we've done enough.
Okay. And 2% is the rate we had for the last 25 years before inflation came along. But prior to that, for most of U.S. history, we were higher than 2%. Is it that 2% is, we're now so used to 2% after 25 years of it that you think that's the appropriate level?
So we went through this long period where inflation was really anchored around 2%. And we think that, and economists think that that's because people start to expect 2% inflation. And inflation, it's in a way, if everyone expects that prices are going to go up, prices and wages are going to go up 2%.
Right there. Mm. If everyone believes the price is going to go up, price goes up.
Mm.
Like
and they get used to it.
Yeah, and this is why what we teach in the crypto mindset courses and stuff in the Citadel is these sort of narrative tales and stuff, and we really break down. We give you the syllabus and the ability to actually talk in crypto, and these crypto terms translate once you learn. Like after me and Charlie kind of break this down, we're breaking this down to you guys right now. Then from there you can just add your crypto terms. Oh, this is like this.
Right.
This is like that, and then you're like, wow. This economic superpower that you built in crypto. What we're doing in crypto is we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just modernizing things.
Yes.
In the space and stuff. So, but these concepts are old and they've existed. Some are brand new, but some are I would say derivatives and stuff. Like some of those are a little bit newer versus like bonds and stocks and stuff like that, which is more easy to get your head around and stuff. So yeah.
Per year, then plus productivity in the case of wages. Then it will. That's what will happen. Having price stability, real price stability for an extended period of time is just enormously beneficial to the public because you can then, on the back of that, you can build a very strong labor market. As we had a labor market with really 3.5% unemployment in 2018 and 19. And we had inflation running, just barely getting to 2%. Wages moving up the most for people at the lower end of the spectrum. And so this was we all want to get back to that place, but the bedrock of the whole thing is to get inflation under control.
The unemployment rate hasn't come down as much as people are going up as much as people thought. In part, some people say because we don't have as many immigrants coming in the country, legal immigrants coming in, taking some of the jobs they otherwise would take. Do you think immigration is an issue in terms of giving us more labor workers, or do you think that's not a factor?
So just as a matter of arithmetic, it was a factor because there was very little migration across borders during the pandemic. And that was part of what was happening, particularly in certain sectors like the agricultural sector and food service and things like that, where there just weren't the people. However, just very recently here, the immigration data have turned up again. And I think that may be part of why people are feeling somewhat less pressure in the labor market to find workers. This is an issue not for the Fed, though. Immigration is obviously a political issue. We do not seek to be a player on this. But it's just a fact, though, that right now the United States has fewer available workers than it has jobs plus job openings.
And when you increase interest rates, the traditional effect is to increase the value of the dollar versus other currencies. Do you have any concern about the value of the dollar going up too much, or that's not something you comment on?
So the responsibility for the exchange rate really rests with the Treasury Department and the administration, not with us. Of course, that's another financial variable that goes into every economic model, but we don't look at it as something that we're working on.
All right. Well, I think I haven't been able to get you to say anything you didn't want to say. I would say, Jay, I've known you a long time. I think you've done a great job in a difficult situation. I appreciate your service to the country at $180,000 a year, or whatever the salary is, something like that. So thanks very much for being here, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, David. Great to see you.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Yeah, I was just going to... There's one person in the chat who was saying, where was it? I believe hexahedron will go up. I believe going to manifest it over the next 3 years. And it's interesting because if you change that phrase to, I believe because, ... right? It's the because, it's the reason, that's the narrative.
You need a better story.
Right.
Yeah. Because I said so.
Best story wins.
But let me go back to one super chat we forgot and we missed. Motivation with a $5 super chat. Do you guys think EHEX dumps when Pulse Chain launches? If so, buying opportunity of PHEX will be the future coin overall? That is an interesting question. It will dump slightly and just go. I think go flatline. I don't think we're going to get. It's not going to nuke. It's not because some people are going to be taking profits out of there. Where do they go? What's going to have the most liquid? It's going to be Hex. It's going to come into Hex, and some people might stake it and hold. There's going to be some selling off, but there will it's very likely that until two or it just depends how long it takes to get the stable coins. Because the copy of USDC and Tether and all this stuff is garbage. It's just gonna be zero. It's non-factor, right? So you're gonna have an old Bitcoin system where eventually, if people do decide to take profits into eHex, the money will just flow back into that. The price will go up. Some will sell off, but it will be higher than where it started.
Right.
Which until we hit a stable coin era, which will happen at some point, maybe 2-3 months into it. So if it might be liquid loans, it might be fiats, it might, who knows whose stablecoin it will be, but there will be a stablecoin that will be the stablecoin. Yeah. So that's the answer. In terms of PHEX, I think PHEX will be a little weak as long as the same thing with PulseX. And this is really just catching the lows on that and buying that up and then holding for a good period of time and taking profits. Just remembering, if you see Hex Flex everywhere, I wish I my glasses. This is one thing I miss about my glasses. I could do this. Is if you see Hex Flex everywhere,
what's the thing in Jurassic Park? It's run, run, you fools! Like Gandalf.
And I think we had a super chat from.
I think it was those three. I think we covered the last one there.
Beautiful, man. Well, did you have any closing thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's just interesting to kind of look a little bit more into the mind of what the Fed is thinking as they're doing these things, right? And so, of course, you're going to get some cookie cutter answers, and they're going to allude to some things. But just generally speaking, I think it's pretty illuminating, and I think it's one of those things where, sometimes going through some of that information can be tedious, right? But when you kind of add the layers of what is really going on, reading between the lines, right? That's where it gets really, really interesting. So. Because this shit, it does affect the whole world. I think somebody in the chat said it best. They were like, this guy basically controls the levers of the U.S. dollar around the world and only makes $190,000. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. No way.
Yeah.
But it's outsourced inflation. But definitely replay this one. We will be doing another one of these within a day or so, as soon as the interview is released and stuff. So it should be. When's the March meeting? I think the March meeting is the
22nd.
22nd. So the 22nd. So maybe the 23rd, 24th. We'll do another one of these where we see what he ends up saying about March.
That'll be interesting. That'll be the most. I think that one will be the most important.
Yeah, because that'll tell us if he's it's months. So it might be 2 or 3, and so that'll tell you it's going deep into summer before the pivot. So interesting, right? So Charlie, where can people follow you?
You can go over to cultivatecrypto.com, where we saw the Citadel earlier. You can also go to Cultivate Crypto on YouTube, Instagram, and all the every social media that you're going to go and find anything about Cultivate Crypto. It is always Cultivate Crypto.
Perfect. And Charlie's all his links to his channels and stuff are in the comment or in the description box below. And you can follow me at Dollar Cost Crypto. There you go, on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're watching me right now and you ain't subscribed, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But with that, we will be having so I'm waiting on a yes or no from a guest right now. If the guest does not show up, then I will be doing my Hex staking part 2. So I'll be doing a Hex stream on Saturday. It's going to be real nice. I'm going to get into a lot of sort of the new theory I have in terms of staking in the current market, right? There is always cookie cutter ways with just even amount every year, but sometimes it's very easy to see some things are coming up and you can adjust things accordingly to be a little more cash efficient and stuff. So definitely join us for that one.
I was going to say, there's probably a lot of people out there I hope that guest doesn't show up.
He broke his legs. Well, hopefully not. He's fighting. Could you imagine, bros, what did you guys do? He broke his leg.
MOONGANG, we up.
But thank you so much, as well as I also have a pretty cool upload that I'm going to have up in the next day or so. It's a really good one,
nice.
You guys. Should I say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so we're just working on the details, but I will be premiering the interview we did with the Red Pill Lions.
Nice.
So it's going to be really cool, as well as the Red Pill Lions are also going to release a video, it's sort of not a collab video, it was a collab video and they also a community video for a lot of the things they give for the Red Pill Alliance holders. So really cool. They flew out some guy there. I'm in the video and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's nice.
And we cut a rug and stuff. O'Neal was there and such. It was fun. We were gambling. We were having fun. They went to an ice hockey game. There was a lot of stuff that happened, as well as they did another one, and they're actually going to release another cologne pretty soon. So
Nice.
I think it's called Line Frame. The last one was called The Cold Approach.
I think that was the perfect name.
Yeah, the Cold Approach is really nice and stuff. I'm trying to hustle to get one, but like there literally isn't anymore. So definitely check them out and stuff. So thank you so much for joining us and stuff. And I will be sure to be on my Twitter and stuff. That's where I usually announce first where I'm gonna have my streams at, and then from there in the adjacent chats. So thank you so much, you guys. Peace.